where the rubber always meets the road, I think. Actually, I'm not even sure what that means.
Heartland Newsfeed Radio Network, live at heartlandnewsfeed.com.
How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Yes, I am here today. Yes, it is Friday. Yes, I am not heading down to hashtag Killer Whale for All Pro Wrestling tonight. Unfortunately, I'll talk about this when we come back from the break, but things didn't work out. I'm very sad about it, but I'll explain everything, and we'll talk about it here after the break. But that means we do have a show here today. We got a lot to talk about. Yesterday, I was trying to get the Doctor of Lucha on, because I wasn't going to be here today, and it didn't work out, but turns out he will be on the show today. So we'll get caught up with Dr. Lucha and all of the latest in Lucha Libre, south of the border, north of the border, everything in WWE, CMLL, AAA, so that'll be a lot of fun. We got news as well. There is an all-elite show, Double or Nothing, which is obviously coming up in Vegas this spring. And there is a ticket announcement party that is taking place on February 7th. We'll give you some information on that. Cody Rhodes is going to be there, the Young Bucks, Brandy Rhodes, the announcement of spectacular new signings. I have an idea who that might be, but we won't know until the day comes. The Being the Elite ended with a cliffhanger where a countdown clock began for what is believed to be Kenny Omega. So we'll talk about that here today. Updates on the death of Bryan Christopher Lawler. A subpoena has been issued. We could talk about the return of Kevin Owens and so much more. Obviously, your calls, texts, and emails as well. The phone number is toll-free, 844-411-5411. Text messages, 425-780-7566. And you can email me, Bryan at WrestlingObserver.com. We'll go through all of that for the first two segments of the show. And then Dr. Lucha will be joining us here today. And we do have a lot of feedback already on a lot of different things, so should be a fun time. Once again, 844-411-5411. Text messages, 425-780-7566. Back in a moment to kick it off, Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive is going to be joining us here in just a moment. Got a lot to get into here today. As always, good day for your feedback if you want to give us a call. Phone number 844-411-5411. Text messages 425-780-7566. As noted in the opening segment, not heading to the All Pro Wrestling show today, but if you happen to be in the Bay Area, I do strongly recommend you go to the show. It's going to be awesome. It is tonight, 7:30 p.m. at the Bayshore Center in Daly City, California. You can still grab your tickets. killerwhale.eventbrite.com. Very sad I'm not going to get to see everybody. I know producer Dom was going to try to make it out there tonight. The quick and dirty, I won't go into all of the personal details. Maybe I'll talk about those later. But long before I ever planned to go, I had a commitment tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. that I have to be there for. And because of things that happened in the last week or so, I absolutely have to be there tomorrow. So, long story short, the flight to and from California, I was going to fly out at 11 a.m. today and fly back at 11 p.m. tonight, because I need to be back by 10 a.m. tomorrow. So I set my alarm, and literally when I woke up, the very first thing that I got in my email bin, I'm going to read it here, it was actually an email from the airline, which I have never in my life got an email from an airline. And it said, important update on your upcoming flight. As you may have heard, we're expecting rain and strong winds in the Bay Area this afternoon. We know the storm was not part of your travel plans. You don't say. So we're going to do our very best to get you where you need to go safely. Give yourself extra time getting to and from the airport. If your travel plans are flexible, you may want to consider flying on a different day. Well, my travel plans aren't flexible, and so I went to the Weather Channel app, and the winds are not too bad now, but the winds get very, very heavy at 11 p.m. when I was supposed to fly back. 22-mile-an-hour winds and a gale warning and heavy gusts. And so there was a decent chance that my flight was going to be canceled and I was not going to be able to get back by 10 a.m. on Saturday. So, unfortunately, I had to cancel the trip. So, apologize to everybody that was going out there. I feel terrible. I've been miserable all morning about this, but that's the way things go. So, that's it. That's the story.
Uh-huh. You going to return the deposit?
There was no deposit, Mike. Are you kidding me? Get out of here. And by the way,
yes,
I did have a bunch of people talking about this on Twitter, and Jungle Boy, who I was very excited to see, All Pro Wrestling tweeted out, unfortunately, due to weather conditions, Bryan Alvarez will not be in attendance for tonight's event. And Jungle Boy wrote, smart choice. I'll see you guys in 6 hours when I get done driving through the rain. Smart choice? What does that mean?
Oh, man. Oh, maybe he's taken some umbrage with some of the things that you've said about him.
I haven't said anything about him.
Yeah, but in your voice, you don't.
No,
have
everyone
to say
says that about my voice. You know what people say when they watch the videos? They go, it always sounds like Bryan's so mad, but when you watch the video, he's always smiling. Yeah, I haven't said one negative thing about the Jungle Boy.
People also say you're a prick for some of those things, and I think maybe that's how Jungle Boy takes it, and the fact that maybe you're sitting there with that smirk on your face, but really, it's the inflection in your voice, and it's the deeper thought that the Jungle Boy can see with his jungle powers. He can see through you and sees the inside and sees that you may have had something planned for tonight.
I had nothing planned for tonight. I'm just a little irritated that I had something happen where I couldn't make it to the show tonight, and this guy has to write good choice on Twitter. I didn't even know this guy could type, much less speak.
Maybe it's better that way. He can speak to the animals, and the show was called Killer Whale, and you don't want any.
Yeah, I'm really upset that I'm not going to a Killer Whale tribute event. Actually, that's as bad as anything else. So yeah, I guess Jungle Boy's defending his. I guess he's the champion, the light heavyweight champion, and he's going to be defending his title tonight. So if you're in the area, I do have a buddy who is going to film the match.
Oh, yeah?
And he's going to send it to me, and I'm going to check it out. So we're going to see what this Jungle Boy is all about. But yeah, I'm not sure what that's all about.
Now, would that just be for interest, or would that be for scouting purposes?
No, I just want to check it out. Like, everyone's talking about the Jungle Boy. He got signed by All Elite Wrestling. He's working for PWG. They chanted, "Please come back." So he's going back. So clearly he's a talented guy. But he's also... Anyway, I'll watch the match. So that's the story, everybody. I apologize. I really wish I could be out there, but maybe I can go to the next show. We'll see what happens. Yep, tonight, killerwhale.eventbrite.com. Head out there and check it out. And by the way, I mentioned Fatu yesterday. If you remember from, I think it was Mania weekend, the last time... What weekend was it? I can't remember. But the last time I went to an all-pro show, Fatu worked the show, and I think it was the King of Indies, and he's great. He is great. So if you get a chance to check him out, super, super talented guy. John Morrison's going to be there. A lot of fun stuff. So, all right, let's get going. And this person here, is this the angle for WrestleMania weekend? No. I am not wrestling Jungle Boy over WrestleMania weekend. Do you hear what I'm saying? I am not wrestling Jungle Boy. I guarantee it. I am not wrestling Jungle Boy. Actually, I can't guarantee it for one reason. We'll talk about next week. But I have zero plans to wrestle Jungle Boy over WrestleMania weekend.
Well, see, you can guarantee it because you're not a babyface. So you can break your promises. A babyface who, if they said they can guarantee it, you wouldn't believe it.
All right, couple of news notes here. All Elite Wrestling has a ticket announcement party. The Splash Pool at the MGM Grand Garden Hotel and Casino in Vegas. 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, Thursday, February 7th. That's next Thursday. They're promoting the Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks. Brandy Rhodes will, quote, reveal spectacular new signings, exciting new partnerships, ticket on sale information, and a surprise special guest at the party. Hangman Page, SoCal Uncensored, they're all advertised as appearing. Cody, Young Bucks, Brandy, they're going to be there as well. This week's episode of Being the Elite, it says here at WrestlingObserver.com, ended with a cliffhanger where a countdown clock began for Kenny Omega. It ends on the day of the ticket party. Ticket party announcement will be open to fans on a first-come, first-served basis, streaming live on Being the Elite's YouTube channel, AEW's Twitter account, the Young Bucks Facebook page, and Brandy's Instagram. And show itself, MGM Grand Garden Arena, Saturday, May 25th.
Very specific branding there. The Young Bucks YouTube account and Brandy's Instagram, which probably, of all the Instagrams out there, she's probably got the one I'd like to see the most.
So this is probably going to be a pretty big deal, everybody. I don't know what's happening, but I mean, there's a lot of things people are expecting, and I would be very surprised if some of this did not pay off on February 7th. So we'll cover it Friday here on the show. It's taking place next Thursday, so there you go. Lawyers hired by the Lawler family have issued subpoenas to the Hardeman County Sheriff's Office and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation as part of their investigation into the death of Bryan Christopher Lawler. The subpoenas are part of a civil action, quote, to pursue a civil rights claim against Hardeman County and the deputies that were supposed to protect Bryan Christopher Lawler. I believe he hung himself, and Jerry Lawler was very skeptical about the way that everything went down. He talked about this in the immediate aftermath of everything. And so now there is a subpoena. So we'll follow this story and let you know what's going on. Kevin Owens tweeted, I just wrestled Adam Cole for the first time in 4.5 years. There was exactly one spectator. He gave it 51.25 stars.
I'd believe it.
Because you, in fact, everyone listening to this right now, all of you, with zero exceptions, you're allowed to rate a match any way you want.
Damn right.
Back in a moment, Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Before we go to the phones here, this fella here says, playing this upon hearing Bryan can't make the show tonight. Tell me a lie. I got some other people here asking if I'm Dolph Ziggling people. Listen, I'm at my house right now, okay? If you don't believe me, the show is being taped for video.f4wonline.com. I'm here at my house right now. I absolutely, 100%, I'll give everybody listening to this right now $1,000 if I'm at All Pro tonight. I'm not going to be there. I'm at my house right now. This is not a storyline or a gimmick. I am at home. You can check the weather on your own phone. I'm here at my house right now. I'm not going to be at the show tonight.
So producer Rob won't be photoshopping the video.
What do you mean photoshopping a video? Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up?
Hey, Bryan. Hey, Mike. It's Nick from Vermont. How you guys doing today?
What's up, Nick?
Quick question for Mike. So a few weeks ago, Hulk Hogan came back, and you didn't watch because obviously you weren't really thrilled that WWE's bringing Hogan back after all the time that has passed since the racial scandal. Do you believe there is a correct time for him to come back? And do you think now, since we are on the road to WrestleMania, it could possibly happen he maybe show up at WrestleMania or something like that?
Well, I think there's a decent chance he'll show up at WrestleMania. Hey, listen, everybody. There's two things with the Hogan story. What's so funny?
Thanks, Mike.
There's two things with the story, okay? Mike does not think that Hulk Hogan should come back ever, okay?
I didn't say that.
Well, he doesn't think he should come back right now.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah. I thought you said you never wanted...
Why are you speaking for me?
I thought you said you never wanted to see him back. Did you not?
I personally don't care if I ever see him back. No. Now, from a business point of view, if he gives the right contrition, which he obviously has not, if he actually honestly felt as though it made people believe that he was actually sorry and not just sorry that he got caught, and the portion of the fan base that he most insulted changed their opinion somewhat, and he was able to convince some of them, then yes, there would be a possibility for it. But to be honest with you, would I do it? I don't necessarily need to see him, because considering what they do with the network and everything else, they have enough legends they can bring back. They have enough stars, and they have him and his footage when they want to use him anyway. I don't see the need to bring him back.
Listen, everyone, this is just like star ratings, okay? Everybody is allowed to have their own opinion on whether or not Hulk Hogan should come back, all right? If you feel that he has paid his penance and that he should be allowed back, that's your opinion. If you feel that he has not paid his penance and that he should never come back, it's okay to have that opinion. You know what I'm saying? Now, business-wise, purely business-wise, like Mike said, if they bring the guy back and all of the fans accept him and all of the sponsors accept him, then apparently that was a good time to bring the guy back.
I guess, yeah. Now, again, there is a separate issue that says, and it's funny as we roll into Black History Month, we'll probably see the same kind of drab, paint-by-numbers, ridiculous tributes that they do, very, minimally deep. I mean, so little depth to these things, it's not even funny. I love how they always show Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson as if it's this great moment in Black history that they won the tag team titles when everybody knows they absolutely hated each other, and the fact they continue to celebrate that as opposed to a zillion different things, I mean, is hilarious to me. But, I mean, you're going into, they insulted a lot of their base, and a lot of their hardcore base that stays with them no matter what, and they've done that a lot recently, whether it be with Crown Jewel. They've done it in a lot of different ways, but there were a lot of people who were not happy, and a big portion of their fan base that was not happy that he was brought back, and they've expressed their opinion on it. It may have been fine to the sponsors and to a lot of people that don't care about such issues, but there's going to be some scabbing left, from this. This was a wound that they didn't have to tear open, that they did anyway. Let's
see here. I'm a little confused by this right here. So, this person says, if we're all allowed to have different opinions on the quality of a match, how come Dave didn't include my opinion in the Observer this week about TakeOver? I thought Ricochet versus Gargano was the worst match on the show. According to what's in the Observer, no one gave that match a thumbs down, yet I did and sent that into him. Well, a few things here. Number one, if there's a match that, for example, I thought it was a 5-star match, I gave it 5 stars. You can give it how many stars you want, okay? But let's see how many best match votes it got. When a match has 370 votes for best match, and there's one vote saying it was the worst match on the show, I mean, there's a decent possibility that Dave is going to presume that you're trolling, and he's going to throw that one out, okay?
Well, we can speak in generalities at that point as well, too.
Now, also, in his worst match poll, there's 271 votes for Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair, which I thought was the worst match on the show. Doesn't mean it was bad. It was just, of all the matches, it was the worst. It was the least great of all of them. How about that?
If 1 is the best and 5 is the worst, unfortunately, something's going to have to be 5. That was that match.
Riddle Ono, 95, and Tommaso Ciampa, Aleister Black, 19. He only listed 3 for the best match and the worst match. So that doesn't necessarily mean he may not have just listed the other 2, however many votes they got. You know what I'm saying? Here, let's take this call. I'm going to do some math during the break.
So it may have been one of 18, and it just didn't register.
All right, caller, you're on the air. What's up?
Hey, guys. This is Mark from Gainesville. I just kind of wanted to make a comment about Mike's post on Twitter about Jay White. I kind of don't see him as a guy, like the top guy. I think he's very bland, and his wrestling match with Okada was really there. For me, Okada made that match even better than it was, and I think, in my opinion, that the match that he had with Juice was what made him as a top guy. But ever since that match, I haven't seen him as a top star.
Hey, boss, I need you to retweet something to your 80,000 followers.
Yes.
I'm going to mention something about Jay White today on the show, about some things David said about him and some of the things that Adam and I talked about when it comes to the Madison Square Garden main event and his match coming up against Tanahashi at the New Beginning show. So go over to my Twitter there. There's a pinned tweet that I'd like you to retweet to your 80,000 followers.
Talk to this guy. I'll do it.
Okay. Now, I'll be doing another show separately about this, but I'll say I have always been very bullish on Jay White. And I am a fan of the character, and I think, did he get off to the best start? No. Like Okada, like other people, sometimes their re-debuts with the company don't go according to plan. And I don't think his necessarily has, and I think he's walking into some big shoes that he's got to fill that have been filled in the past several years by guys like Kenny Omega and AJ Styles and Finn Balor. So, yeah, I mean, he is at an early point in his career, and he's got a lot to learn, including how to be the character of the Switchblade, which I think he has kind of gotten down pretty good. Now, that is the reason I asked the question is because every time that Adam and I talk about him on the show, it usually generates a lot of discussion and generates some very diverse feelings, all the way from this guy could not be any more white bread and milk toast than, all the way to, he's a great future for the company, and he's kind of really hit his stride right now, and there's, most of the discussion about him always ends up being one end of the spectrum to the other. So I wanted to find out from people what they thought, because I do have some more talking points on it, and I was very interested to see what people think.
All right, so going back, by the way, to the TakeOver Phoenix poll, if you look at the total number of people that voted and you add up all of the best and worst match, he only listed the top 3. So there are other matches that got best match, there are other matches that got worst match, but if they didn't make the top 3, he didn't list them. So he did take your feedback. It just didn't fall into the top 3 or bottom 3. Meaning less than 19 people thought that Johnny Gargano Ricochet was the worst match on the show. And it may have been only one. Yeah, I think Jay White's good, but I don't know. The match that he had in California, I think it was the Cow Palace match, with what's-his-face.
Oh, that guy?
Juice? What was his name? Juice Robinson. That match was awesome. And Jay White was a megastar in that match. But so far, that's the only match I've seen that in. So,
I had somebody say... Somebody said after a show Adam and I did that Jay White was as pale and generic as his skin tone and physique. Which
he's as pale as his skin tone?
Which I thought was mean because I don't think he's that pale in skin tone, but physique, I guess, is underwhelming. I noticed you don't like the underwhelming physique, neither him nor Zack Sabre Jr., a fan of those gentlemen. They don't have the good-looking body like you do.
This person here says, have you seen Nia's tweet about wanting all the heat for legitimately hurting R-Truth? What are they teaching her backstage? This is ridiculous. She hurt R-Truth?
What?
Is that R-Truth won the title on Tuesday. How badly could he have been hurt?
Yeah, he wrestled 2 matches, kind of, sort of.
I think that might be...
Nia wants all the smoke.
Storyline, yeah.
Mrs. Chimney.
Yeah. What else have we got here? This person here says... Oh, this is on your poll. Jay White has improved hugely over the last 6 months. Well, he's only going to get better. I mean, I can tell you that much. But, how much better? We'll see. He's got a while there. Let's put it that way.
You didn't have to specify, by the way, that was my poll. Everybody can look at my poll and know that it's mine.
I was just confused because I didn't know what he was referring to when he said he's improved a lot. He could have been talking about Jungle Boy. I'll be the determinant of that. Back in a moment with Dr. Lucha, Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. The Doctor of Lucha is joining us here today. A lot to talk about. How you going, Dr. Luch?
Hey, I'm doing fine. It's 66 degrees in Las Vegas right now. Things are good.
Man, 66 degrees. We got snow coming, snowing where Mike is right now. High winds in San Francisco. What next?
Some excuse for not making your date.
Are you kidding me?
You're probably scared of Jungle Boy again.
Get out of here.
Man, it's not high winds, it's just blowing wind.
Oh, get out of here. I know you're a big fan, Dr. Luch.
Last week we discussed him for about 60 seconds, and I compared with Barbaro Carbonario, and I was thinking about it over the weekend, and maybe a better comparison in the U.S. is the Lightning Kid, 1-2-3 Kid. When Lightning Kid came along and was on Global or whatever before he got into WWE, people were going, nah, he's too young looking, he's too small, he's too skinny, he's never going to make it, that sort of thing. And there's similar sort of career trajectory going on in that area, I think.
Well, do you see it a little bit better than others? Because that's what Americans say, or non-Lucha fans seem to say when they see like Soberano Jr. That's what I got from like Japanese fans. Like before they actually saw him wrestle, it's like, what is this guy, 12? You know, and you see his build and you're not that blown away by him. So, you know, do you see it better? And if you do, if he's Lightning Kid, then who's his Jerry Lynn?
Well, I could be talking.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare! Don't you dare! Yeah, what's up with these kids nowadays? By the way, like I remember when you were 21, 22 years old. Like that's when you should be jacked. This guy's a rail. He's supposed to be a jungle boy.
He's put on.
He looks like a vine.
He's gonna be ready for some tough competition, no matter where it is in the U.S.
Which way does he swing?
Hey, by the way, Dr. Lucha.
And he has worked in Mexico. He has worked in Arena Mexico before.
Really?
With Ultimo Dragon.
Wow. That's pretty impressive, actually.
Then, yeah, really.
Hey, I gotta bring this up. Maybe we can talk more about Jungle Boy later, but last week on this show, I'm not making this up, everybody. Last week on this show, we were talking about Super Porky. Mm-hmm. And how Super Porky would lose his hair like every single year, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So Super Porky has not been wrestling for a long time, and he's been very, very sick. Apparently he's better now. Super Porky's putting his hair on the line tonight, if I recall correctly. Not in an actual match, but he's like a second who's putting his hair on the line. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that is not an unusual it's not frequent, but it's not an unusual concept in Mexico. Second's hair happens from time to time. It's La Mascara against Maximo.
Bill Dundee's wife.
He can't help himself.
And the loser of the match will have his or her second. One man's second is Brazo de Plata Porky, and the other is Goya Kong, the similarly corpulent but very, very well respected wrestling daughter in the family.
It just goes along with what you've said.
And she's not losing her hair.
Well, what you said last week about him living for professional wrestling, and as soon as he's got the ability to, I guess, get out of whatever he was doing in the office or whatever, he's got enough to be able to stand out there in front of a crowd, he's got to be right back into it.
Yeah, it is. It is. Some people just can't, the bug never goes. There's very few Jack Briscoes in the world. They just throw their hands up one day and walk away. And this guy, the bug is as strong as anybody I've ever seen. He may never go away. He may be like Mil Mascaras working till he's 80.
By the way, R.I.P. This day 9 years ago, Jack Briscoe passed away, and he did have the best going away of any, in my opinion, of any wrestler ever, when he just turned around and said, I'm going to the airport, I'm taking the first plane south, I'm out. Very few guys get a chance to do that, or they keep getting pulled away. He knew.
Well, you're right. It's very odd. It's very not odd. Is not the word I'm looking for. It's very rare.
Hey, he did the same thing with the title too.
I mean, look at the other guy on this conversation. Goes away for a while, but he's back in it.
What's going on here?
Chopping and rolling, and probably heading for a challenge for the UWA Tag Team titles again.
And then when he's done with it, he just quits and stays home instead of jumping on the flight and says,
"Why don't you get together with Ed and you guys can promote a show together?" He bugs me about that on a daily basis. Kidding me.
Dr. Lucha and Ed?
Is there a suitable venue in the Pacific Northwest?
Around here? There's plenty around here, actually.
Gotta get in business.
Defy has lit this place on fire.
Casinos.
Yeah, Defy has turned wrestling around in Washington State. Back in the 90s, this place was death. Rip Rogers called it the island. Which actually it's kind of funny because the Young Bucks came to Seattle for the first time ever for Defy, and they had no idea where Seattle was. They were like, "Isn't it in Oregon?" You know how many people? Do you know how many people I've talked to in my lifetime that think that Seattle is in Oregon? Like a lot of them.
How do they not? What do they forget about? The top? Is that where the country ends now? Is Oregon?
They've just never been here.
Does anyone say? Well, how does? I don't know. That amazes me.
There's no Seattle-landia on TV.
Yeah.
Well, there's big love for Portland, though. I mean, Eugene is in the house. More
they say
Americans
Portland. They said
there?
Oregon, or as other people like to call it, Oregon.
No, Eugene is where Nike is, so it gets a lot of pop too.
Yeah, it's possible. Better mascot for the college football team.
Let's talk about this Universal tournament.
The champion of champions.
Yes. A prestigious title in CMLL will be crowned.
Yes, unfortunately, CMLL has too many champions, and they're not going to be able to. They're going to do 2 8-man tournaments, and they've got 18 champions. But that's okay. They had 17 one year, and it just happens. The lightweight is always iffy to make this tournament. But it's, as I said last week, it's CMLL in their eyes. It's their biggest tournament of the year. And as they haven't yet even given really much of a clue as to where they're headed for Dos Leyendas, and Dos Leyendas should be 6 weeks from tonight, then maybe even 5 weeks from tonight, then I highly expect something to come from this, or maybe from the undercard where Atlantis and Atlantis Jr. will be battling the Villanos. Can you believe it's been 19 years since Atlantis and Villano 3?
I feel like I saw it like 3 years ago.
It's like, well, time flies when you're having fun, yeah, but I would highly doubt, of course, that they would start a feud that quickly, unless they have nothing left to run with Atlantis Final 3. I think that's a long simmering feud that if they do get to Atlantis and Villano 4 match, I'd be surprised to see it so soon as to run this year.
But how long can you hold off?
Of course, it's very interesting to watch because you see all the champions and all their ring interests and stuff like that, and then they lose in 3 minutes and they walk back to the arena. And I've complained about that on this show for 10 or more years, but that's CMLL loves it that way.
I mean, it's one thing if you've got guys in their 30s or early 40s and you want to hold off a match, but I mean, if you've got guys in their 50s, I mean, to me, it's like, if that match is a possibility, like, do it.
Well, that's what I thought about Rush and Park, although Rush isn't in his...
Oh, they're younger, yeah. I mean, they've got time, but...
Yeah.
I mean, Villano and Atlantis, like, how many years are you going to hold that one off?
Yes.
You're rolling the dice.
When the combined age is over 100, then you've got to... You got to consider that there's not much time left.
Yes.
It would be interesting to go, though. Villano 4 has he's the last one of his family generation that's held onto the mask. And everybody else has had the philosophy to cash it in at maximum value. So I can see him thinking about doing that. And he goes back and forth. Sometimes he works for AAA, too. So,
it would seem very early for Hijo del Villano 3, Tercera, to unmask. But, I mean, you got father and son in the match tonight. And you could do a double stip match.
You could. Yeah, well, you could. It just strikes me as being so early. I haven't seen CMLL run something quite like that. Lately, guys, Paco Alonso's theory on a lot of his stipulation matches, I mean, you look at, Dragon Lee and La Mascara and then Diamante Azul and Bestia del Ring is, what's the kind of, and I'm overstating, but what's the least I can do that will still draw a major crowd at slightly above prices? It's not like looking at art and saying, what's the most memorable historic match I can possibly do?
I mean, in general, in business, I mean, that's not the worst idea. Like, what's the minimum you can do to draw great? But then every now and then you should put on something huge for historical purposes, or...
You would think so. And he's looked at it, and you almost get the feeling, guys, that he is... in his own mind, he's got an end date when he's going to turn over things to the next generation, his family, Sophia, and make his exit or move off into the background. Because in that family, nobody ever kind of leaves the business totally. But I just wonder if he's, I don't want to say playing out the string, but I just wonder if he's kind of not as involved in just playing the last 2 or 3 years as calmly and quietly as possible, so he can hand over a solid business when it's time to step out the door as he gets closer to 65.
What's up with AAA and Televisa?
As far as I know, the contract ended at the end of last year. My understanding is they had a contract where Televisa at the end. And it ran out at the end of the year, and Televisa wanted them AAA to pay for its time slot. And AAA did not want to do it. They would do it if they had a sponsor, is my understanding, a sponsor that would sponsor the program for them and be the main sponsor. whether it's Corona beer or a cement company or whatever it might be. And they don't have one currently lined up to pay the Televisa-size prices. And they want Televisa, and, you know, they've had a 27, they've been on from May 15th or May 16th to 1992 when the show aired in Mexico, through the end of 2018, and they think this is, you know, it's been a real good relationship, and we've delivered decent ratings over the time, and you should be willing to keep us on. And they're just at loggerheads. I mean, they're just, as far as I know, they're at real loggerheads. Both sides are like sitting way off in their far corner. AAA says, we don't want to pay for it, and Televisa says, you must pay for it, and right now it's stuck.
So right now, no TV.
On Televisa, I mean, it's available on other channels. You can see it on Twitch live, and I suspected this was coming last year because Televisa was airing matches long after they had been taped, and Twitch was airing them live for AAA, and it's like, that's not that can't be good for, you know, negotiating business with Televisa. You want to give them the content first. They're the ones with the millions and millions and millions of viewers, not the tens of thousands of viewers.
Steve, this reminds me, just real quick here, Roush friends, obviously all over the CMLL broadcast, they brake pads. I don't know exactly 100% what they do, even though they show the commercial nonstop. Exactly how much do they pour in? Do you know what it is?
To the best of my knowledge, very little. It's a sponsor, and they're willing to do it, and they have, and they trade some of their stuff for, like, they will not have to pay the talent for the sold. Like,
does the ring truck get, like, you know, free checkups?
Like, but I have heard people say it's much less than you would think.
So free checkups for the ring truck, free product
income, and it changes from time to time.
All right, well, stand by. We'll be back in just a moment with more Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com, the doctor of Lucha. MD, PhD, do we know, Dr. Luch?
Yeah, it's a PhD.
Okay.
I'm not going to cut anybody open.
All right. Hey, what do we got coming up in the new Figure 4 Weekly?
Well, it's going to be CMLL focus this coming week with the anniversary. I mean, with the Universal Tournament that's starting up, and with the Atlantis match and the debut of the Junior tonight. We're going to give the start of the direction on where they're headed for the Dos Leyendas, their second biggest card of the year. So I'm very anxious to see the show and see what they've got. They've got it planned out, and we're going to get to find out starting tonight.
That's right. You can check it all out at WrestlingObserver.com. Your subscription not only gets you the Wrestling Observer newsletter, which, by the way, Dave is still getting out every Wednesday, despite only having one arm right now. He still is getting it out every Wednesday, so you can check that out. We got thousands of Observers archived, thousands of Figure 4 Weeklies archived. Dr. Luch's column is in there every week. And as a subscriber, you also get all of the audio shows. So for those of you that love Observer Live, Bryan and Vinny Show, Wrestling Observer Radio, the Adam and Mike Big Audio Nightmare.
Damn right.
And all of the other great shows here at WrestlingObserver.com. Every one of them is archived. That's WrestlingObserver.com. Nearly 10,000 shows. Very soon we're going to hit the 10,000 show archived mark. That's a lot of audio. And, of course, video.f4wonline.com as well. So, Dr. Luch, I want to thank you for doing the show here today. Best of luck with everything. And I guess have fun watching the tournament tonight with 18 champions.
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal, Dr. Luch.
Massive.
Yes.
Massive.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Luch. Thanks, Mike, as always. Callers and listeners over to the studio. We'll talk to you next time. Wrestling Observer Live. How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. It's a weird day today. Snowed in here in the studios. We got 8 inches of snow last night, which here in Seattle, it may as well be 100 inches of snow. I know I'll immediately start getting the text messages that we get 8 inches of snow every night here in Saskatchewan or wherever. Seattle is very, very hilly. 8 inches of snow, this place is shut down. In fact, the news update at the top of the hour mentioned the weather here in the Northwest because it's so weird. So, anyway, we're going to try a little test here today. We're going to remote record this show. Our producer couldn't make it in, so he's going to try to do a remote production of the show for video.f4wonline.com. So we'll see how that goes. But we are here live, Ready for the show here tonight. Raw and Smackdown over the next couple of days. We got Elimination Chamber coming up and a lot of other news as well. No show yesterday because, of course, it was Super Bowl Sunday. But we can talk about Halftime Heat. What'd you think of that? It was a very, very exciting match. Got a lot of great reviews of the match. What did you think? You're welcome to let us know here today. 844-411-5411 is the phone number. That is toll-free, 844-411-5411. You can send your text messages to 425-780-7566. Got a lot to talk about in terms of the Raw previews. Becky Lynch is going to be there tonight. We got a lot of matches announced for Raw and for SmackDown as well. So we can talk about those. Plus, post-wrestling had a bunch of injury updates on various folks, including Seth Rollins, Sasha Banks, AJ, and Becky Lynch. We'll talk to you about that here today. The death of Les Thornton. We got an Impact pay-per-view coming up, and all of the other news as well. So, whatever's on your mind, give us a call here today, 844-411-5411. Text messages 425-780-7566, and we will kick it off after the break. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, I presume, is going to join us. Oh, here he is. Late for work as always due to the snow, I'm sure. But we are here. He'll know G-Raff made it in today despite the weather conditions. We got Ron Smackdown to talk about tonight. Already got people here calling in on the telephones, text messages, the whole 9 yards. Mike, did you watch the Super Bowl?
I did.
And?
Sucked. It's horrible. You know that already.
That's why you don't watch football. You watch a real sport like professional wrestling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
Hey, I didn't even mention, speaking of real sports.
I did that during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we'll talk about Halftime Heat, but congratulations, this person note, Filthy Tom Lawler, the new MLW World Heavyweight Champion, and they add, he earned it. That's right. He didn't deserve it. He earned it. A big difference. Very proud of Filthy. We'll talk to him on
another champion for New England
Wednesday. Another champion for this website. We got myself, the ICWA Texarkana television champion. We got Vinny, the current YWF heavyweight champion, and a Shoot Battle Royal winner. We got Filthy Tom Lawler here. He's the current MLW champion. I mean, it's a tough act to follow, Mike. Tough act to follow.
Oh, well, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, get working.
Might get lucky.
And no one gets lucky in this business, Mike.
I thought your championship was inactive, by the way.
No, it's not inactive. Are you kidding me? I'm the current champion.
Last couple times you've been out there wrestling, you've been taking L's, so I'm not sure.
I have not taken any L's. What are you talking about?
Oh, that's right. I forgot. Your tag team. One tag team partner turned on you, and the other one you lost with.
No. When my partner turned on me, I still won that match by myself. I also destroyed and broke the leg of Marco Stunt. No one's seen him since. So I don't want to hear about any of this. I am undefeated, just like somebody else we know. All right. Got a couple of notes here. Some injuries, as well as Raw and Smackdown tonight. Raw is in Portland. No, I will not be there. Smackdown is in, where is it tomorrow? Everett. That's kind of like Seattle. We'll see if I'm there.
I was going to say, that's like right in your sights there, isn't it? Are you going to that?
We'll see. There's deep snows here in Seattle, so I was gonna go. We'll figure out if I can make it out there. So tonight, WWE announced Becky Lynch has been invited to Raw by Stephanie McMahon. Uh-oh. Her appearance on the episode was not advertised in advance, with her showing up. This is for last week. So tonight she's been invited. She says she was going to be there anyway on Twitter. There was an angle on SmackDown where she brawled with Charlotte. WWE played up the storyline knee injury that she suffered at the Royal Rumble. It was said that she refused medical attention, and she did an interview saying she doesn't want to spend more time on the shelf. So what's happening here is that the story is that she is hurt, and if she has anybody examine her, she's going to be pulled from WrestleMania. She does not want to be pulled from WrestleMania. So therefore, she's trying to avoid being seen by the doctors. So they're going far enough with this that she's actually not working house shows. Which, by the way, I mean, she is very popular. I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole argument about how she's not as popular as people want her to be based on business, but if you did buy a ticket to see Becky Lynch at the house shows this weekend, and she's not on the shows because they're doing a fake knee injury for her to play in a SummerSlam, boy, would I be mad. But that's what they're doing. So she'll be there tonight. And also, we have Jeff Jarrett versus Elias, which may be building towards Jeff Jarrett and the Road Dogg versus Elias and a partner. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is, because Road Dogg is in Jeff Jarrett's corner. Sasha Banks and Bayley versus Alicia and Nikki for Raw's last spot in the Women's Tag Team Elimination Chamber match, which that can't be right, by the way. I think there's 2 more spots open. I need to get on this front page, find out if that's correct. And Intercontinental Champion Bobby Lashley versus Finn Balor, non-title. And a segment where Kurt Angle will address his future in WWE. So, let's check this out here. The Elimination Chamber is 4 pods and 2 teams, right? That's 6.
Yes.
Okay. So, we've got Nia Jax and Tamina, Mandy Rose and Sonya, the Riot Squad, and the Iconics. That leaves 2 spots, not 1 spot. So, our front page report is inaccurate. Or they got it from WWE and they were inaccurate. But one way or the other, there are 2 spots left. Every team that is in the Elimination Chamber right now is a heel team. Now, maybe this is the final Raw slot. I guess it is, yeah. I apologize. It's Raw's last spot in the Women's Tag Team Elimination Chamber match. So tomorrow we'll get a Smackdown spot. But basically, it's got to be 2 babyface teams. I mean, it has to be. I mean, there's no way they're doing a first-ever Raw Elimination Chamber match for the Women's Tag Team titles with nothing but heel teams. It's WWE, anything's possible, but I think that Bayley and Sasha pretty much have to win. Sasha got banged up in the match with Ronda Rousey. She was not cleared last week, but apparently she'll be ready for tonight. Apparently. If not, they're in big trouble. AJ's banged up, should be cleared by Tuesday. This all from Post Wrestling. Seth Rollins is dealing with an injury that went down prior to last Monday's Raw, so it can't be that bad because Brock beat the hell out of him. But it looks like he's not going to be doing any house shows and won't be doing much wrestling for a month or so. So, I don't know what the injury is, but that's that. And as noted, the Becky injury is storyline. So that's Raw and SmackDown building up to the Elimination Chamber show. I guess we'll see who wins those matches. And actually, I didn't even go over SmackDown. Here's SmackDown for tomorrow. Daniel Bryan, Jeff Hardy, non-title. Randy Orton, Mustafa Ali. We have got Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson versus Nakamura and Rusev. And I think that's it. Angel of the Wings Arena, Tuesday night. Maybe I'll see you there, everybody. A lot of stuff going on in WWE. What did you think of Halftime Heat?
I thought it was okay.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, it was a cool match. Now that it's over, I don't know if it accomplished its goal or not, and I don't know if I would do it again unless I got a piece of business to attach to it, whether it be to hype something up or whether because you want to try out a concept or something like that in front of a crowd that you're just inviting in and not charging to be there. So, I mean, that was... But the concept was, aside, the match itself was cool. I mean, anytime you get, you get a free match that's really good and really exciting, I don't think anybody can complain about that. But I don't know exactly what the goal was, whether it was just to try to do something different or something like that. But, again, it was a fun, isolated, it was a fun little match. And obviously all of those guys have more to do with each other as time goes on. Certainly in the case of Johnny Gargano and Velveteen Dream, that's certainly the case. So, we'll have to just see if they build on it in the TV, if they talk about it or not, or if it's just something that was one off in a vacuum just to do something during halftime.
All right. If you don't want a spoiler for the Elimination Chamber, shut off the show until after the commercial break, which is coming up here in just a moment. Come back here at about 25 after. So they did some commercials for the Elimination Chamber and spoiled the final team. Of course, it's not really a spoiler because it's WWE and they can just do whatever they want, and commercials aren't always accurate. But when they made the commercial, the final team was Naomi and Carmella. Let me repeat that.
What?
The final team in the Elimination Chamber match to determine the new, I can't say first ever, because
The revived
1989. The NWA show that we were watching this week. At the same time on the other show, the Jumping Bomb Angels had just lost the WWF Women's Tag Team titles. But anyway, Naomi and Carmella. Not Kairi Sane and Io Shirai, but Naomi and Carmella are the final team fighting for those titles in the Elimination Chamber. But hey, it's a babyface team. Even though I think Carmella was a heel the last time I saw her on television. I could be wrong.
So it's them and Bayley and Sasha.
We presume. But I mean, I suppose there's a slim chance that Sasha won't be cleared and then she won't be able to get into the match. Which, by the way, I mean, the current fan base doesn't care, so I don't even know why I bring this up. But do you notice that, like, some of these teams have to qualify? Like, Sasha Banks and Bayley have to actually win a match to get into the chamber. But the Iconics, they just got in. They didn't have to beat anybody. So there's, like, no rhyme or reason to the way they're choosing teams. Back in a moment, Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. You can go to the phones in a moment here, but I gotta address something here. Sitting in front of me right now, I'm trying to. My remote producer is making sure that I've got this in the shot here. If you're a video.f4wonline.com subscriber, sitting in front of me right now is the ICWA Texarkana Television Championship belt.
Retired?
No, my friend. Laura here on Twitter questioned me. She's got, I believe this is from Cage Match, and it says here that Larry Sweeney was the champion, and then I beat Larry Sweeney at the ECW Arena, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Held the title for 159 days, it says right here. And then it lists Larry Sweeney as having beaten me on November 4, 2011 in Elizabeth, Pennsylvania, which was, in fact, a four-way match. And I can't say that Cage Match is wrong, but it's missing part of the story here. Some of you may remember Razor Ramon, Shawn Michaels, that second ladder match that they had, I believe in 1994. What happened, everybody, is that the very first match, and Mikey can confirm this, the Black Label Pro promoter, because he's the one that promoted the first match. Very first match that we had was for the Texarkana Championship. And what happened was I pinned him with a German suplex, and I won the title. However, according to Larry Sweeney, my shoulders were also down, which, looking at the tape, I don't know where he got this idea. And so, our second match that we had, he showed up with a second Texarkana title. Very much like Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, when I believe it was Shawn showed up with a second Intercontinental title. So our second match that we had was for the second Texarkana Television Championship. So when I won that, I held two belts. And then the third match that we had, he in fact did beat me for the second championship. But I still retained that first ICWA Texarkana Television Championship. So I am the current champion right now. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mike? Thank you.
This is very much...
So, hey, since we're on the subject, I got a big announcement for everybody. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
All right. So, we had a lot of matches scheduled over WrestleMania weekend. I was at first... I was going to team with Filthy Tom Lawler, and we were going to take on Marco Stunt and PCO. That was going to be the tag team match we were going to have. I consider all my matches championship matches, but one way or the other. That was a tag match. So then, PCO and Marco Stunt both ended up out of the match. First, Marco Stunt broke his leg in the match with myself, I might add, and so he's not even going to be around WrestleMania weekend. All right? PCO then got signed by Ring of Honor. So he is also out of WrestleMania weekend. So that left me and Filthy to take on whoever, two mystery opponents. Then MLW pulled Filthy Tom Lawler, so I was all by myself. Now, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but everybody that I'm scheduled to face, they either get injured or they get signed by somebody. And so, to guarantee that my match does not get screwed up now over WrestleMania weekend, I am hereby issuing an open challenge to anybody who is unbooked on April 5th at 4 o'clock p.m. for the Black Label Pro Show. I'm going to be doing the Bryan Alvarez Open Challenge for Black Label Pro. And not only that, you heard it here first, everybody. On April 1st for Black Label Pro, I will be issuing an open challenge to anybody, and I will be defending the ICW-ICWA Texarkana Television Championship against whoever steps up in the Bryan Alvarez Open Challenge.
Oh, my God. Please tell me Onita's not booked for that.
Hey, I don't know who it's going to be. It's an open challenge, so anybody could show up. But that's it. If you got your tickets to Black Label Pro and you're sad, if Filthy Tom Lawler's not going to be there and our original match isn't going to take place, I deeply apologize. But I want to ensure that I don't have an opponent that gets scooped out from underneath me in the days and weeks leading up to the event. So it could be anybody. But whoever it is that steps into the ring on April 5th, that Black Label Pro Show, they will have a shot at the prestigious ICW-ICWA Texarkana television title. So there you go. That's the announcement. And with that, let's go to the phones. You're on the air.
Hey, Brian. It's BJ from Arizona.
Yes, BJ. What are you doing April 5th?
Probably just watching Mania on the network or whatever day that is. Is that the Saturday or the Friday?
This will be Friday, I believe, April 5th.
Friday. Oh, then the TakeOver show, because I know they moved the TakeOver to Friday night.
Hey, prior to that, Black Label Pro.
I did want to call in today about, I know you were mentioning earlier, halftime heat. I don't know if I'm probably the only one with this opinion, but I thought this was one of the best tag team matches I've seen in a very long time. Like,
you think you're the only one with that opinion?
Well, no, I think a lot of people liked the match, but I don't know if they have it in regards as high as I do. Like, I think this was the best WWE tag match since possibly DIY versus Revival in Toronto when they did that 2 out of 3 falls match. I think this was my favorite tag match they've done since then.
Well, hey, listen, we had people on our board last night that said that they thought that this was their match of the year so far. I realize it's only a month in, but people loved that match.
So you liked it better than Mustache Mountain and the Undisputed Era?
I did, yeah. Like, I
really?
loved Undisputed Era versus Mustache Mountain, but I think I preferred Halftime Heat a little bit more than that match.
I definitely like the Mustache Mountain match better.
But I did want to ask you, based off that match, I live in Arizona, so I was at like the Royal Rumble weekend, you know, the TakeOver, the Raw, all that stuff, and I was fully expecting Aleister Black to come out on either Raw or SmackDown, and he never showed up. So I didn't know if you had any update on him or what's going on there, because I thought for sure of anyone he was getting called up to the main roster after that show.
Well, you got to remember that when people get called up, I want to thank you very much for the call. When people get called up, they don't immediately debut on the show. Like, they made the announcements for Lacey Evans and Heavy Machinery and all those folks like a month before they showed up. When the plan was to call up AOP, I mean, we knew they were coming up, and it was forever before they ended up getting called up. So I expect Aleister Black is next to be called up, but it could be after WrestleMania before they call the guy up. I don't know. I mean, this is kind of a spoiler, everybody, for NXT, but sort of not, because we actually don't know what's going on. But at the last set of tapings, Velveteen Dream beat Johnny Gargano and won the North American title, okay? But then they kept taping. Gargano came out, put him in the Gargano Escape, and took the title back. And then he showed up with the title and was announced as champion last night. So it could have been just because they wanted to announce him as champion last night, so they did a disputed finish. It could be that nothing is official till it airs on television. Or it could be that in storyline, as we'll find out on TV, they taped 2 finishes and used the finish where Gargano won. So we don't even know what's going on yet. But they may just be holding off Aleister Black until after halftime heat and then bringing him up then. I don't know what they're doing. But we shall see. I do believe he's next.
I don't think I need to see Kairi Sane and Shirai up on the main roster yet to be involved in a mess of a tag team situation that they easily couldn't just walk into once they debuted after WrestleMania or something like that. I mean, I'm okay with that, for them not to be brought up and put in a situation where they could lose to Mandy and Sonya. I don't know if I necessarily need to see them up there quite yet.
Dude, I don't want anyone called up. I mean, here's the thing. Hold on a second, everyone. Let me explain my thoughts on this, okay? The main roster, this is just the reality. It's kind of sad, actually. So, everybody needs to make a living, all right? And, like, you're not going to save for retirement and live a comfortable life, like, on NXT money. You're just not. I mean, maybe once AEW gets started, there's a possibility of that, but all of those folks down in NXT, the sad thing is, in order for them to really make a lot of money, they have to go to the main roster. But the best time they will have in their lives is down there in NXT. So I get really sad when people get called up, in the sense that they're going to get called up. Like, probably 80% of them are going to end up like The Revival or No Way Jose or whoever. 20% are probably going to make it, and it's going to be really good for them. But even the ones that really make it, like Dean Ambrose made it, and I'm sure he made millions of dollars over the last 8-9 years or however long he's been up there. But, like, he wants out because it ain't no fun for him on the main roster. So even if you go up there and you make it to whatever degree, I mean, for a portion of those people, they're still going to long for the days when they were hanging out in Orlando, doing the loop. All their buddies are there. They go to the Performance Center. They're just having the time of their lives. It's just sort of sad. And as a fan, part of me wants them to get called up to make the money, and the other part of me wants them to just stay down there so I can watch NXT and enjoy them. So it's a tough thing.
Plus, down in Florida, J.J. Williams will pay for all of your trips to IHOP and Waffle House. So that's another reason that it's nicer down there.
So this person notes that Carmel's a babyface, and he does a heel babyface count, and there's 16 heels and 10 babyfaces. And while I appreciate this list, like, Rusev showed up on SmackDown last Tuesday and was a heel. And he was a babyface on Sunday. And there was no reason for it. None. So, I don't know who's what, and it doesn't really matter. Dana Brookie notes here, turning every week. Yep, that's the case. Back in a moment, Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Let's head to the phones. You are on the air. What is going on?
Hey, this is John from New York, and first of all, Brian, greatly appreciate the retweet last night in terms of my 1-year anniversary to subscribing to the Empire.
Yes, thank you.
So, yeah. And now, as far as tonight, I have to say, I am really crossing my fingers tonight that what I hope, in fear and anger, what I hope does not happen in terms of the Stephanie McMahon, Becky Lynch segment, because God forbid, if the worst comes to life in terms of that, I might literally be completely done with trusting them ever again.
When I heard that they were going to do a segment with Ronda and Becky, obviously, like everybody else, my first thought was, they're going to kill Becky. They're going to emasculate the man. But then I thought about it, and I could be an idiot here, but I was like, there's no way, right? Right?
No.
They couldn't possibly. I know I've said this before. I know that 95% of the times when I say this, like, I end up looking like an idiot. But this has to be the 5%, right? They cannot have Stephanie go in there and make her look like a fool.
Yeah.
They just can't.
No. Because that's true. They could literally make or break WrestleMania just this segment alone tonight, wouldn't you say?
Nah, there's a lot of time. If WrestleMania were Sunday and Stephanie came out and just made her look like a fool, I still think WrestleMania is going to do what it always does because it's WrestleMania, but, they could do something stupid here, and they've got months to rehab Becky.
Yeah, in regards to, like, her using this, knee injury as a work, I actually hope it's, if they have any brains left inside them, I want them really hope they do something similar to when they did that, famous Stone Cold Vince McMahon, first stunner in MSG angle, where Austin was basically saying, he appreciates McMahon caring, but he could also, kiss his ass and then drop him with that just horrific first stunner.
Well, if you watch those old shows, I want to thank you very much for the call. McMahon sold every single day for Steve Austin, sometimes multiple times per show. And it's just so funny. Like, do you remember every time that, like, Stephanie came out and just humiliated somebody, and I would talk about how, back in the day, Vince would do this for us and blah, blah, blah. and the crazy WWE defenders would say, dude, she went through a table for Roman at WrestleMania. It's like, so one time a year, that's enough? Like, she can come out on TV every single week and humiliate somebody, and because she accidentally gets bumped through a table one time every year, like, that's enough for people? Dude, come on. Yeah. Like, this has got to end tonight with Becky putting her in the disarmor. Like, there's no other option. You know what would be even better? If she actually gave Stephanie a stunner. Why not? Who cares?
You're building in that, shadow anyway. You might as well do that. And bottom line, that's what they need to do. If you're going to insert Stephanie McMahon into any of this, it is to be laid out by one of the two women. And since they're playing the Steve Austin role right now with Becky Lynch, that's what you should do. No, you can't tell me what to do. Or even if she's going to be this is going to be more than 1 week, and it could very well be if they're trying to do an angle where, because you have 2 pay-per-views left before WrestleMania, you're keeping Becky Lynch off of one of the shows or all of the shows because of her injury. So this may not just be a 1 week thing. And if that's the case, then, you do need Becky to do what Steve Austin did with Vince McMahon, which was get the better of him every week, even if he was getting his comeuppance, even if something something was put in his way, an obstacle was put in his way, you still had that expectation by the end of the show that, Vince was going to get a little bit. And that's the biggest thing that's missing with Stephanie, especially with the way she's dressed down most of the women in the past, if not all of the women in the past. And when they've inserted her into those types of stories, it's always heavy-handed and too much, and they always forget what worked about the whole Vince and Steve Austin storyline.
Person here says Marco broke his leg in L.A., not Crown Point. Fake news. Don't want to hear about it. Person says if Becky is the new Steve Austin, she has to either stun Stephanie or put her in the... I just said that, yes. That is exactly what I just said. Thank you for that text. This person says, what do you think of people talking bad about Halftime Heat? Many trying to say it was no better than a flippy indie spot fest match. Well, dude, you can watch the real Halftime. You can go watch Maroon 5. Knock yourself out. Yes, it was a very indie-style match. Yes, there were a lot of flips. Okay? A lot of people love that. Some people don't.
I don't
you know what?
You're
entitled to whatever your opinion is.
Les Thornton and Tony Charles, just because it was a timely thing because of Les Thornton passing away. I don't know if you're putting that on at Halftime Heat and saying, stick with us. You're putting on the flashy, over-the-top, 6-person flippy-do tag match. I mean, you kind of should do that. It's to get attention. It's to make you go ooh-ah and wow and have that 20-minute aside, that you usually would be watching the Super Bowl. And so I don't know. I think that's a kind of a dumb thing to complain about.
Person says Halftime Heat was basically your super fun 4.5-star PWG spot fest. Everyone very much enjoyed it after that boring Super Bowl game. NXT should do more shows broadcast straight from the Performance Center. The idea could be very cost-effective. Well, this is not like news, but I do know that that's what they were talking about last night. Like, there should be more shows like this. Hunter wasn't there, but he watched it. He was texting and calling throughout the show. He loved it. He loved the match. Sean loved it. He loves everybody involved. You could tell from his commentary. Everybody that was there had a great time. They made it up to look great.
Wow, the new spot show.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you had a great audience. It was full of friends, family, and other wrestlers. They were all very respectful. They cheered the baby faces. They booed the heels. No stupid chants. And it was great.
Would you do it, though? Do you think it's worth it to do unless you have something to push? Or do you just you do it every once in a while? Is it literally you're doing it just to do it?
Just do it at the right time. The halftime is a great time. I mean, I don't know what the other great times would be, but I'm sure things will come up.
Well, I guess you could shoehorn it around everything else with pop culture. I mean, you could always find a way that, during some award show or during this or during that, you can slip it in there. Almost all sports have a halftime, with the exception of the World Series. There's always an intermission, I guess I should say, in the case of hockey. But yeah, I mean, I guess if this is successful and you want to do a little, I mean, essentially, what is a dojo show, or at least a one-off spot match? It's just again, I don't know though if this is other than just to do that. I don't know. It's just kind of
at the right time. It would be great,
I guess. But so, what do you get out of this though?
Dude, you put on a fun show that everybody has a great time doing. It's not like it costs a lot of money. I mean, everybody there had a great time. Every fan watching it had a great time. All the wrestlers had a great time.
So it's family and friends. But again,
because, Mike, it's nice to make people happy every now and then, which you're not going to get on the main roster shows.
Boy,
so
you're one to say that.
I'm totally fine with that. This person here says, there was a This Is Awesome and Fight Forever. No, there was not a Fight Forever. I watched the whole thing. There was no Fight Forever chant. There was This Is Awesome, but there was no You Deserve It or anything like that. This person says, I loved hearing Borash do the ring announcing. It wasn't Borash. It was Greg from Smackdown. Vinny screwed up last night. So there you go. What do you think of Shawn Michaels doing commentary? I thought he was good. He knows all the guys. He loves all of the guys. He does it old school. He has no one in his ear. So he does it like they did it back in the day. You put all the guys over. You tell the story. You make it seem like they're all larger than life and better than you. And I thought he did a really good job. I thought the commentary was great. Vic Joseph and Shawn Michaels, awesome. This person here says, why are these injuries piling up around Rousey matches not viewed in the same light as Nia Jax? Jay White's New Beginning promos and post-match interview was amazing, by the way. Well, I don't know how many injuries Rousey has actually caused. I mean, we're talking about Sasha Banks here. Every time she does a big match, she gets hurt. She has a tendency to take bumps that she doesn't need to take, and she's, 115 pounds or whatever, and she's not built to land on her head all over the place. And she takes a lot of bumps like that. So, I don't know, you can maybe blame Ronda if you want to, but here's the difference, everybody. If you're in a physical match and nothing goes wrong, but you end up getting hurt, then that's the business. If you're in a match and someone punches you right in the face and they break your orbital, but that's totally different. It's totally different. Now I'm going to get more texts on this. People furious about that answer, but that's the reality of it. I've gotten hurt in matches before plenty of times. Like someone went to give me a snake eyes and I hyperextended my knee. That's not their fault. That was how I landed. It's something that happens in matches. It happens all the time. But I also had matches. I had a match with the missing Link's son, jumping Jason Sterling. And I was laying on the mat, and he was supposed to give me a leg drop from the outside in, and just destroyed me. Landed right on my head. I mean, it was brutal. That was his fault. That was not my fault. That was not an accident that happens in a match. That's different. That was somebody that I felt at the time was being careless. I don't know if he was or not, but it sure felt that way to me. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, boys. What's up? It's Savon from Jersey.
What's happening?
What's going on? Well, first and foremost, I want to say, Bryan, I will be there April 5th on a Friday, and I believe it's April 5th, right? I have to check my tickets. I do want to get a glimpse of your title, man. You know what I mean? My wife and I will be there.
Oh, I can't wait.
With this open challenge. The open challenge is a scary thing, though, man. You never know who's going to come through that curtain, brother.
You don't know. That's the point of the open challenge.
So with that being said, let's. I do have a question for you guys. It's fair to say that Ronda in high pressure situations doesn't always handle things the way a superstar quote unquote would handle them. Being that Mania match with Becky is a very high pressure situation, and let's say her and Becky miss their spots and things start going awry and things are going wrong, and to get back on point, to find your spot back in the match, don't you kind of want Charlotte in there? Isn't Charlotte... Dude,
I've been saying this for days, Savon.
I apologize. I just, I haven't heard a couple of shows. I missed it.
Sure.
But isn't Charlotte a better worker?
Yes.
To get Ronda back on track in a match like that?
Here's the thing, everybody. Savon, I want to thank you for the call. I can't wait to see you over Mania weekend. Listen. The reason that people don't want Charlotte in that match, everyone has a different reason, okay? But it seems to me that the main reason that people don't want her in the match is because they presume that if she's in the match, she's going to win the title. I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong. But it's WrestleMania. And if you look back at the history of WrestleMania, in the big matches, 9 times out of 10, they do give the fans what they want. Now, everybody's going to talk about Roman. Everyone's going to talk about Hunter winning in 2000 or whatever. But 9 times out of 10, they give the fans what they want. And even in the Roman Reigns situation, Roman was the babyface. He was supposed to be what everybody wanted. They were giving you a happy ending at WrestleMania, okay? I'd say, again, I've been wrong before, I've looked stupid before, but I'd say there's a 99% chance that Becky is leaving with that title. Now, with that assumption that I have, in my opinion, it is going to be a better match with Charlotte. We just saw a three-way match with Charlotte, Asuka, and Becky a couple of months ago. Charlotte was the best worker in that match. Was that the match of the three-way? What was the match of the three-way that we just had? Was it TLC?
Something like that.
Maybe it was.
I think it was TLC, actually.
Might have been TLC. I'm pretty sure that was the match I'm thinking of. But the point is, Charlotte was great in that match. And Charlotte's going to be great in a three-way with Ronda and Becky. The match is going to be better with Charlotte in it. And Becky can still win, everybody. That's my thoughts on this whole thing. Ronda's match with Bayley, my God, was a disaster. Back in a moment, Observer Live. All right, I got some clarification here. So there was a three-way at TLC. Becky, Charlotte, Asuka for the Smackdown title. That was an excellent match. It was a three-way, and Charlotte was involved. The match I was actually talking about was Becky, Charlotte, and Carmella on SmackDown, where the winner got a shot at Asuka at the Rumble. Also a three-way, and Charlotte was awesome in that match. I absolutely can virtually guarantee that Becky, Charlotte, Carmella was 1,000 times better than Becky versus Carmella in a singles match would be. Now, granted, Ronda Rousey is better than Carmella, but when I look at that match, I'm telling you, the addition of Charlotte is going to be an improvement over the singles match. And again, Becky can beat both of them. And she can walk out with that title, and everybody can be happy. Plus, like I've said, the whole idea is finally after 4 years, we're going to have a WrestleMania main event where everybody loves the babyface and everybody hates the heels. And Ronda and Charlotte are going to be heels. So you're going to have a babyface, it's an even bigger babyface than ever, facing two people that everybody hates and probably coming out on top. How that's a bad thing, I have no idea.
They love to see someone overcome the odds, even if they've placed all those odds in front of that person to begin with. But they love to play that story, and I think it's a great story to play as long as Becky walks out.
Well, that's the thing. As long as she walks out. I'm confident she's walking out with the championship. And you know what? If I'm wrong, you can hold it over my head forever, even though I'm not the one booking the thing. This person says, people are always ready to jump on Ronda for hurting people. It's not even close to the Nia Jax situation. You're right. In physical matches, people get hurt. There's a big difference between that and being careless and hurting people. We're out of time, everybody. Got to wrap it up for today. Tonight's Raw, tomorrow's SmackDown. We'll talk about it all over the next couple of days. We're here every day. Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Thanks, Mike, as always. Callers and listeners, everybody in the studio. Talk to you again next time. Wrestling Observer Live. How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Got a lot to talk about here today. Last night was Raw. We are on the road to the Elimination Chamber and thus the road to WrestleMania. That, of course, also means that SmackDown is tonight. SmackDown is taking place in Everett, Angel of the Wings Casino. I'm maybe going. We had a huge snowstorm the last couple of days, and the temperature has not gotten above 32. And as a result, unlike some places here in this country that get a lot of snow, here in the Seattle area we get ice. And we have hills, and nobody can go anywhere right now. So we'll see if I can make it out there to Everett tonight for the show. I know a lot of the wrestlers trying to make it from Yakima to Everett in the snow, which is crazy. There are these long lines of cars. Hopefully everybody gets there safe. It's horrible out here. So that's the update on SmackDown tonight. I'll keep everybody updated on Twitter. I can already tell you, no Bryan and Vinny show tonight. Neither Craig nor Vinny can get out here. Vinny's got something like 10 inches of snow and ice where he's at, so no traveling for him. We will make up those Retro Rod Nitro shows later on this week. But hey, I'm here for this show, so a lot to get into. What did you think of Raw last night? What did you think of the Ronda Rousey-Becky Lynch segment? Now, a lot of people still freaking out about the whole thing, so you're welcome to give your thoughts here today. about Becky, WrestleMania, Charlotte, the whole 9 yards. We got the Superstar Shakeup date. It'll be taking place shortly after WrestleMania, so pretty much any ideas that you have post-WrestleMania that involve anybody on any brand, who knows? They can do it because they're going to do their split. Half the people going to Raw, half going to SmackDown. That is the shakeup, by the way, where SmackDown needs to be loaded, and where, by the way, my prediction from the beginning of the year remains that they are going to do a Superstar shakeup, and SmackDown is going to get the short end of the stick again, even though they need to be super strong going on to Fox. I will win the prediction contest this year. We can talk about this and so much more, and we'll kick it off after the break. Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also WrestlingObserver.com. A lot to talk about here today on the show. The next Superstar Shakeup has a date. Promo aired in Canada during Raw last night. Scott Stanford announced an international Superstar Shakeup take place on the April 15th and 16th shows at the Bell Center in Montreal. The significance of the word international was not explained. Well, they're in Montreal, so it's not in the United States. Superstar Shakeup replaced the WWE Draft last year as a way to move Raw wrestlers to SmackDown and vice versa. Whereas the WWE Draft had more formal rules regarding draft picks and trades, Superstar Shakeup is more vague in the way Raw and SmackDown talent are traded. Last year's notable jumps included The Miz, Baron Corbin, and the Riot Squad to Raw, while Asuka, Samoa Joe, and Jeff Hardy went to SmackDown. NXT stars sometimes included in the shakeup. Sanity and Andrade went to SmackDown. Drew McIntyre went to Raw. Also, they announced Intercontinental title match. Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins announced for the Raw taping in Montreal. Well, don't hold your breath on that one. That's April. So, I predicted at the beginning of this year for the prediction contest, my prediction was that when they do the Superstar Shakeup, everybody knows that SmackDown is going to Fox in October. And these SmackDown numbers, like if you look at the Fox shows that got the numbers that SmackDown is getting right now, they were all canceled. So, obviously, SmackDown needs to do much, much better than they're doing now. Now, they're automatically going to do better because they're moving to Fox and there's a larger audience on Fox than there is on the USA Network. But how well are they going to do? Can they get 3.5 million viewers regularly? In order to do that, they're going to need some big names, some big stars on the SmackDown roster. So, everybody just presumes that in that Superstar Shakeup, SmackDown's going to get a bunch of big stars, and Raw, I guess you can say they'd be gutted, because every year everyone says SmackDown's going to be gutted. I predicted, and I stand by this prediction, that is not going to happen. I predict that they are going to do a shakeup. Raw's going to once again get all the big stars. SmackDown is going to get the lesser stars. Everybody's going to be completely baffled. Would you like to take that bet, Mike?
No, I don't want to take that bet for a couple of different reasons, but why would you believe that? Was it just because you wanted to make a bold prediction or what here? I'm
going to tell you. Because this is my thought here. First off, because every time you expect WWE to do something, they do the opposite. So, I mean, that's one of the main reasons I'm predicting this. But the main reason I'm predicting this is SmackDown does not go to the Fox network until October. And this shakedown is in April. So you've got all of April, May, June, July, August, and September. You got 6 months before they go to Fox. And so I see Vince sitting there in the office, and he goes, "Wait a second, pal. We're going to send everyone to SmackDown? 6 months? Raw's going to be the week show?" He's not going to do it. He is going to put everybody on Raw, and he's going to keep it that way all throughout the summer, and then they're going to come up with some sort of idea in September where a bunch of people are going to end up on the SmackDown brand. But there's no way this guy is gutting Raw 6 months prior to them moving to the Fox network. I stand by that prediction.
I misunderstood you then. I thought you meant that they weren't going to add to SmackDown at all. They weren't.
No, they
going
will.
To use this opportunity.
They're not going to do it at the shakeup.
Well, that's a pretty. I'm not saying that's a safe bet because, like you said, who knows what they'll do. But yeah, I mean, at least until September, they wouldn't be doing something, I wouldn't think, or making a lot of major moves. No, I wouldn't believe they would do that, because they're going to wait to the last minute and make sure that they have all their I's dotted and T's crossed and things like that, because I would assume Brock Lesnar is going over there, as well as possibly Ronda Rousey and anybody else they can get, at least initially, for the first hit as you go into that fall season.
This person here says, I don't understand your bet. You are betting people will be baffled by the draft, which happens every year. You predict Raw will get more stars. It happens every year. You're basically predicting the WWE will keep on trying. Yes, because this year they can't. They can't do that this year. If SmackDown goes to Fox with the star power that SmackDown has now, I don't even think there's a SmackDown on Fox by the beginning of the new year. It'll be on FS1. It'll be relegated to some smaller station. They cannot go to Fox with the roster they've got now and expect to stay on Fox for any length of time. The show can very easily be canceled off Fox. It will be. If they don't load up SmackDown with stars, whether it be at the Superstar Shakeup or in September or October, they will be canceled. They've been canceled off networks before. They were canceled off WGN. This can happen. UPN, this will happen if they don't have numbers. And they're not going to have numbers with the SmackDown roster they've got now. Somebody sent me a list of all of the Fox shows that did the numbers that SmackDown is doing right now, and they were all canceled. So they can't do this. That's the end of the story. What did you think of Raw last night?
I thought it was 3 hours long. It's the overriding thing of it. You know, if you would have condensed that show down a little bit, it wouldn't have been as tough. But it wasn't awful. I didn't hate it or anything like that. You know, the Becky Ronda thing, I think, probably played out with Stephanie McMahon's involvement is about as good as it could get, in that Stephanie played subtle heel when she kicked Becky, but for the most part, it was Becky flipping out, going nuts, smacking around Stephanie McMahon, and now you have a storyline reason to have either Charlotte enter or whatever it is. You have a storyline reason to create some more storylines as you build into these next two pay-per-views and figuring out how you're going to do a three-way, which is what it still seems to look at for WrestleMania.
I thought the segment was good. I had people all night talking about how Becky was buried, Becky came off as a heel, this, that. I didn't see any of that. I think people are seeing what they expect to see and not what actually happened. So, I thought it was good. I thought that I am still baffled that they've got a star that everybody seems to like, and in order to further this storyline of her injury that she won't have looked at, they're not having her work house shows. She's not even showing up to do an interview. They literally are taking her off house shows that people paid tickets to see for a fake injury. It's crazy. They never do this. But for the one star that people really seem to like, she's off the show, so we got to stick with this storyline right here. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hi, Brian. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Pretty good. What's up?
Nothing much. One quick, small question. When was the last time you defended that Texarkana title?
You know, it's been a while, but what's the point?
I was just wondering. I was just curious.
Yeah.
You know, I could very well answer the open challenge.
Do it.
That could be something that happens.
Be there.
Get your refunds now. Get your refunds now, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. My other thing is more of an observation. So they did that Becky-Stephanie angle. That's the exact same way they started Vince and Austin. If you remember, Vince stopped Austin from coming back because he had a neck injury, and the whole angle started, the whole storyline started because Vince didn't want Austin to wrestle with a bad neck, and Austin was basically saying, you know, screw you. So do you think that they're just going to copy and paste it basically? Because it's clear they're trying to make Becky Stone Cold.
I'll tell you why they're not going to. They're not going to because they will not put Stephanie in the situation that Vince willingly put himself in multiple times per show every single week. And if you don't have someone who will play the role of Vince McMahon the way that Vince played the role of Vince McMahon, all you're going to get is the same goofy storyline we've seen for 1,000 years with authority figures. You got to have a Vince. Yeah. That's why Vince and Austin worked. It was not all Steve Austin. It was half and half.
Yeah, that's too bad. She'd get really over if they did that, though.
Hey, she is really
even
over.
More so than now, probably.
The issue is not getting her over. I want to thank you very much for the call. The issue is keeping her over. They got to keep her over for 2 more months. We'll see if they can do it. This person here says, Dave was confused last night with Charlie wearing 2 separate outfits on the show. One was Charlie and one was Dasha. Which, by the way, led to another text message, somebody asking, where's Dasha? Well, apparently she was on the show playing the role of Charlie. So there you go. That's some strange confusion.
That, well, I guess for some people, that's how generic the interviewers are. I mean, look, how many times did you screw up Todd Grisham in somebody's name for the announcers?
This person here said, did you notice that the ongoing bit last night where the wrestlers were calling out the interviewers for insulting questions? Yeah, because they ask stupid questions. Somebody finally figured out that was funny. Now it's the storyline, I guess. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Ric Flair is 70 years old later this month. February 25th to be exact. He'll be making an appearance on Raw to celebrate the occasion. They announced on Monday night Flair will be appearing for a birthday celebration on the February 25th episode of Raw, which is the day of his 70th birthday, from the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. The Nature Boys parties are never modest. We can only imagine what lavish festivities are in store and which superstars and legends will drop in for some styling and profiling. I would bet Charlotte to do something with Ronda Rousey. For next week's Raw, WWE's teased Natalya will face Dana Brooke. That's an exciting match. You can look forward to that. Got a person here saying, I don't understand why we should get mad at WWE for following kayfabe with Becky at the house shows. I'll tell you why, my friend. So listen. They never do. Okay? No matter what happens on Raw and SmackDown, no matter how badly somebody gets beaten up, they still go out there and they work the house shows. So, yes, sometimes they false advertise on Raw and that sort of thing, but like, if me and my young daughter decide that we want to go to a house show, and Becky Lynch is advertised for the show, and she loves Becky Lynch, then we go to the show and we see Becky Lynch. That's what they always do. So now they've changed it. So if you and your daughter and your wife, you guys go out there and you spend $210 on tickets, $17 more on parking, you buy $300 you spend for that house show. And you go there because Becky Lynch is advertised as appearing. And you show up at the event, you're waiting all night, and she never comes out. Because they're doing a storyline that she's hurt. They don't send her out for an interview to say hi to everybody, play her music. She's just not on the show because in storyline she's hurt. And by the way, meanwhile, all of the other individuals that are hurt in storyline, they're working the show. So you're out $300. You don't see the person you want to see because they're following a kayfabe storyline. Would that make you happy? I think that'd make a lot of people unhappy. And like I said, if she's hurt in storyline, fine, have her go out and do an interview. Have her go out there and do an angle. Have her go out there and beat up some security geeks. Have her do something. Because people bought their ticket to see her, and she should be there. That's why, in my opinion.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, you know, how many times is there a stipulation on TV that's not adhered to on the house show because they use the excuse, well, you know, we've got to have these guys, you know, or gals, whoever it was that was suspended or whatever it is, you know, they've got to fulfill their contractual requirements, you know, by law or whatever it is that they say. The same thing comes with the injuries. I mean, you know, do you have her with a knee brace on already? Have her limp out there and either get involved with somebody's match, do an interview, something like that. It's nice that they adhere to this, but if this is going to be step one and always doing that, okay, fine, but it doesn't really make any sense in 2019 to do such a thing.
This person here says, why do they blow off the hottest angle of the show after the first segment? Why are they showing the hottest star leave the arena after the first segment? Show sucked. Well, you know, the bigger issue to me wasn't the first segment. It was that last hour where we had Corbin out there and Alexa Bliss, Moment of Bliss, and that Dean Ambrose segment and EC3. That was a death segment. But the answer is they used to do this all the time back in the day with Steve Austin, but it worked because he came back. She doesn't come back. So I don't have a good answer for you. Start the show off hot. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up?
Hey, what's up, boys? You know, everyone's talking about Fox for SmackDown. What is USA doing about Raw? I mean, clearly USA uses Raw for their primetime ratings. When does USA say, you know, when do they start getting involved and say, you know, hey, Raw, you got to, figure this out because your ratings aren't what we are paying you for, or something along those lines, whatever it is.
Well, I know
everyone's talking about Fox.
The deal is USA's network numbers for everything else suck. So Raw's still doing well.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, Raw is compared to everything else, but I mean, your Modern Families and your everything else, they're using Raw to bump up their ratings, and if Raw's, I guess in their eyes, doing well, that's...
Yeah, but Sivan, here's the thing.
Overall.
This is the difference between Raw and SmackDown. If SmackDown continues to perform like it does on broadcast TV, it's going to be one of the lowest rated shows in prime time on broadcast TV. Conversely, for no matter what you want to say about the decline in the ratings and all that sort of stuff with demographics and whatnot, they still do well as far as demographics go, and their show is, when you take the news out of the mix or the news entertainment shows out of the mix, one of, if not the best rated shows on cable TV. So it's a funny side of the just again, it depends on what side of the coin you're looking at here. It's rather bizarre, but that's when it comes right down to it. That's the reason why.
I mean, the eyeballs that are on USA are they're going to be really less than the eyeballs that are going to be on Fox. So I understand, filling SmackDown with the biggest stars you possibly have for this Fox exchange. So where does that leave USA when this is going on with Fox? You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
well, look at it this way.
That's sinking even more than SmackDown.
Yes.
You switched all your superstars over SmackDown.
Yes, but I want to thank you very much for the call. I don't think that Fox and USA really have a lot of say in content. I mean, you very rarely, I've never, I mean, they're obviously both on USA right now, but if you look back in the past when like Raw was on USA and SmackDown was on CW or whatever, I mean, it's not like CW was demanding stars or Raw was demanding stars or USA or whatever. I mean, they want a show. And they hope it's going to be good. So, yes, it's likely that the Raw number is going to be down. It's not going to be down, like, tremendously. If you want to know what the Raw number is going to be, it's probably going to be the SmackDown number right now. It'll probably be about 85% of what Raw is today if they had the SmackDown roster. But it's also Monday and not Tuesday, so it'll probably be higher than that. So I don't think Raw's going to drop a lot if you take a lot of those people off the show. I mean, there have been periods where Raw didn't have a lot of stars because they were all hurt, like the November-December period. And yeah, things were down, but it still wasn't down below SmackDown's numbers. So it's going to drop a little bit, but it's not going to fall completely off a cliff if they load up SmackDown. This person says, why doesn't WWE realize that having Charlotte not in the match at WrestleMania gives them an opportunity to have all 4 horsewomen holding titles to close the show, capping off the women's evolution? Because I don't think they care about that. They care about the main event. I don't even think that, like, Becky... Does anyone here think that Becky and Sasha are going to win the tag team titles? Besides the crazy Sasha people that get mad at me. Does anybody else think that they're going to win these titles? I don't think so.
I think they could win them. They could win them. Now, I don't know how long they stay together as a team, but they could definitely win them at the pay-per-view, and then which leads to a turn after WrestleMania or something like that.
They could win them at the Chamber and then lose them at WrestleMania, everybody.
Yeah.
I mean... You know what we're talking about here. It's WWE. Right now, on the Raw roster, there are 11 heel females and 3 baby faces. So, I don't know about this idea of everybody standing tall at the end of WrestleMania. We have Nia Jax and Tamina. They could win. We have Mandy and Sonya. They could win. I don't expect Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan, or Billie Kay and Peyton Hoyst to win. But Sasha and Bayley could win. And presumably Carmella and Naomi are going to win tonight. Unless I guess they just want 5 heel teams and 1 babyface team in the Elimination Chamber. But they could win as well. So I don't think Carmella and Naomi are going to win. So we're looking at 3 possible teams to win, I think.
I want Mandy and Sonya to win in the Chamber, which then leads to Sasha and Bayley winning at WrestleMania, and then both teams can turn on each other and break up, because we keep talking about Sasha and Bayley, but they have been teasing Mandy and Sonya at times as well, breaking up already, with Mandy kind of throwing Sonya under the bus. So maybe we can get both teams breaking up.
Should mention, by the way, that Heavy Machinery have both lost their last names.
Remember when you misspoke and said people don't lose their names? Oh, yeah, they lose their names, and now we just got notice.
I never said they didn't lose their names. Of course people have lost their names. What are you talking about? That wasn't even the argument.
Well,
Yes.
what was the argument then?
I don't even remember, but I was never saying that
Exactly.
people never lost their names. Somebody will clue me in here.
Yeah.
But it's now Otis. No, I think what I said was, people lose their names, but they usually get them back, which actually is the case.
Like Big E, right?
Big E never even had a last name. He was always
Langston.
Big E. Dude, it doesn't matter if they had a last name in NXT. That doesn't count. It's after they come up to the main roster.
I tell.
It's Otis and Tucker. Tucker? That's like the name of somebody's dog. At least Tucker Knight. He had like I don't know.
Mother Tucker?
Is it because Paige's movie is coming out and we can't have him named Knight? Is that the problem here? You know what I think it is? It's because they have what the hell's his name?
Tucker Carlson.
No, you geek.
Yeah.
Tall guy in NXT that got the new name. Dijak.
Donovan Dijak?
Once they gave him Dijakovic, I was like, we have a Dijakovic and a Dozovic. Like, you knew that one of them was gone. And unfortunately, it was Otis.
They weren't trying to reach out and put a performance center in the Czech Republic?
He's now just named Otis. Heavy Machinery, Otis and Tucker.
Well, for a team like Otis and Tucker, they probably can get away with being Otis and Tucker since they wanted to be a little bit of Luke and Butch.
Somebody make me a list of all the people that have lost and regained their last names.
You put Charlotte. Charlotte Flair would be the big show on that list of how many times that she's turned on her name or they've turned her name.
Yep. All right, let's go to the phones. You are actually, you know what? Caller, stand by because we're about to go to the break. I'm not going to mess this up this time because I am a professional. So I'll read one more text message anyway, then we'll go to the break. Last night's Raw, 2.6 million. It says here. I'll have to check that out. That seems early. Back in a moment. Observer Live. All right, I don't see Raw ratings yet, but I am looking as we speak. They might actually be up, but I don't see them. So, stand by. Let's go to the phones. You are on the air. What is going on?
Hey, guys. Not too much. I just had a question about Raw last night. Now, in my opinion, it was very apparent that by putting Ronda right after Becky, they were trying to avoid constant "we want Becky" chants, and they were trying to, piggyback off the obvious, excitement the crowd would have. But were you able to understand what Ronda was saying when she grabbed the mic halfway through her segment?
Yeah, she yelled at the fans.
I wasn't able to understand any of it. All I could hear was something about the crowd booing her, but
yeah, she was screaming about how the crowd was booing her and yelling at them for it. Like somebody asked me, I want to thank you very much for the call. When is Ronda turning heel? Dude, she's a heel now. I mean, it's WWE, so like nobody's really a babyface or a heel, I don't think, because they just do whatever they want on a weekly basis. But when she's out there yelling at the people for booing her, I mean, to me, like she's a heel now. So.
Which is what you wanted to do. I mean, it's... I don't know if they exactly had meant to do it, but it was the perfect show to begin that turn if it was not official enough. Because, this is coming down to Becky, and I know everybody is still upset about the Charlotte angle playing in all this, too, and I understand the people that want it to be a one-on-one match and everything, but regardless, Charlotte's going to be in this thing, and she's going to be a heel. And I don't think she's going to affect Becky at all. And that's the whole thing, is all of these odds stacked against the man. And again, whether you like having a three-way or not doesn't matter. But what matters is at the end of the day, Ronda and Charlotte are going to be booed out of that building. Whether Stephanie's along with that or not, we'll find out. But at least those two other women, when they're standing in there with Becky, they're going to get booed come April.
First says, I checked. Becky Lynch was advertised for both the house show and Raw last night at the same time. That was nice. All those folks at those Smackdown house shows. That's the thing, by the way, everybody. Like, the last quarter, WWE house shows lost money. You understand what I'm saying? They lost money on house shows. And when you're losing money on house shows, what you really don't want to do is advertise that people are going to be there and then not have them there. That's how WCW completely tanked their house shows on their way to going out of business. Now, if WWE stopped running house shows, it would make zero difference to their bottom line. Actually, their bottom line would be a little better because they wouldn't be losing money on the house shows. But the point is, they're not going to go to business on house shows. But like, if you're going to bother to run house shows, then like, don't lose money on them. And if you don't want to lose money on them, if you advertise someone for the house show, they better be there. I had a buddy that was going to go to Raw last night and was looking at ticket prices, and it's $70 for a decent seat. $70 for a decent seat. $50 for even further up. So, two people go, you and a buddy. That's $140, and it's $18 to park. And then you're going to buy your merch, and you're going to buy your food and everything. Like, you're talking $200 for two of you, $300 if you bring three of you. Family, $400 to go to that show. And granted, that's Raw, it'd be a little cheaper for a house show. But man, you go there expecting to see somebody advertise and they're not there. You going to go next time?
No, believe me, I lived through those WCW years. There was a lot that went wrong there. But watching the atrophy of people that would fill those house shows up, and then you'd get so many people no-showing and so many car changes and this and that, and it was awful. And by the end, I mean, nobody would be there. And why would they when you've been burned so many times spending that kind of money?
This person here says they just built a Brock versus Braun match for months, knowing they'd change it the final week, and said Cena would be in the Rumble. Why are we surprised? Well, I think what's happening here is that they know that the fans that they have left don't care. The fans that they have left, like they buy their tickets, they're going to go see the show. I mean, they used to have fans that cared, but those fans stopped going. And so, yeah, I guess you could argue, hey, just advertise everybody and whoever shows up, it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe we're down to the bottom of the barrel right now where it doesn't matter. I mean, trust me, I could tell you for a fact, this is a very, very loyal group of people that are still watching WWE. They're profoundly loyal. And so they don't mind being screwed, basically. But the people that do mind being screwed, they don't go anymore. And so if you really want to figure out, like, why are ratings where they are, why are house shows where they are, obviously we're making a lot of money on TV, but if you take out television, the core wrestling business is less popular than ever. Why? I mean, these are some of the reasons why. And if you want to build it back up again, you got to start over. You got to let people pay their money and get what they're advertised. That's it. That's the story. This person here says ratings will be out at 4:15 Eastern. I see. So, okay. 2.6 million. This is from somebody that actually works for, I won't say where. But anyway, that's the number. 2.6 million for Raw last night. So I guess we can go on and see what they did last week and find out how that compares. If you want to give us a call, by the way, 844-411-5411 is the phone number. That is 844-411-5411. Mike, talk a little bit about El Santo. I'm going to compare this to last week's numbers.
Talk a little bit about El Santo?
It's the anniversary of his death.
Oh, man. Just came off the anniversary of Jack Briscoe's death. I didn't realize that about El Santo, but he is the
an all-time great. I tried to get Dr. Lucha on today. He was unavailable.
The most famous pro wrestler in all of the land, in all of the world. There's nobody who is a bigger cultural icon that had anything to do with professional wrestling in their country more than El Santo is in Mexico. Not Baba or Rikidozan or Inoki in Japan, not Hulk Hogan or Flair or whoever, Bruno, whoever you want here. They may be as big or bigger in some people's minds, but when it comes to the overall country and who's popular and to this day, there's nobody that's El Santo level. Was that enough time for you to break out the ratings?
I'll find it here in a while. Okay, here we go. So last week, the show did 2.7 million viewers. This would be for the Royal Rumble show. So that show did get a bump. So now that the Royal Rumble bump is over this week, 2.6 million viewers is looking to be the number. And we don't have the hourly yet, but when I get those, we'll tell you about them here on the show.
Becky Lynch not a draw, huh?
Are you trying to argue that? Because they're down this week and she was on the show.
I just wanted to see if you wanted to argue that with anybody.
No, it's not just Becky. It's a 3-hour show. Now, why they brought her out and got rid of her, I don't know. Maybe they figured you were so dumb you'd think she'd come back, even though people don't do that. So, yeah.
The missing part of that turning her into Steve Austin puzzle, having her come out at the end and destroy something that way, which was always a main important part of the Steve Austin puzzle that they got away from.
This person says, if Fox cancels SmackDown, does WWE still get a percentage of the money, like each year a signing bonus like pro sports? Don't think there's a signing bonus.
No.
But
do they get help with production, though?
I mean, it's not even so much... Fox, here's the thing with Fox, everybody. Is it the end of the world if SmackDown gets canceled off Fox and is moved to FS1? No. It's not the end of the world. It ain't gonna make it's not going to make a bit of difference, okay? But the whole point of putting SmackDown on the Fox network is the Fox is an over-the-air broadcast channel. It's a network. You don't need to have cable. You don't need to have an internet connection. Like, you can be out in the middle of nowhere with an antenna, and for free, you can watch SmackDown. That's what being on a network is all about, okay? There are far more homes that get Fox than get USA, or especially FS1. So, far more eyeballs are going to watch SmackDown if it's on Fox. So, if you want to build up the company, if you want to build up the viewership again, if you want to create new fans, if you want to create some new fans that are going to watch this, like Mike and I, we were little kids when we first discovered WWE, and have them watching for life, you do that on Fox, not on FS1, not on the internet, not on YouTube, not even on USA. You do it on Fox. So, if they lose Fox and they go to FS1, they're still going to make a lot of money on television. All of the diehards are still going to say, hey, don't worry, they're making $1 billion. You're right, that's all true. But you're going to lose the opportunity to cultivate brand new fans to WWE in a way that you cannot do with anything else you've got. You cannot do it with your social media. You cannot do it with your YouTube. You cannot do it with your USA, or any of those. You cannot do what you can do with Fox. This should not be lost. It would not be the end of the world. But, no.
It's also, I mean, it is a shot to the ego again, though. You know, you have the XFL. I mean, if SmackDown's doing these kind of numbers where, which is possible, we don't know that they're not. When you already had the XFL, when you already have been canceled off of WGN before, and just, it's not going to feel good. And at some point, at least one's got to assume that the gravy train, when it comes to live sports programming, which is how this is being paid for, it's not being positioned that way. I don't think WWE really looks at it that way, but the money is that way. You know, that's going to at some point dry up. So if you whiff here, when it comes time for contract renegotiations, you may be looking smaller anyway, but you're really going to have a problem if you're stuck with your tail between your legs and you're working FS1 and FS2.
Alrighty, so I'm trying to figure out something here for this fellow that's asking about El Santo.
What's he asking specifically?
And now I'm see if I can find it here. Let's add here. Okay, so what he's asking here is about Bret Hart and El Santo. He says Bret Hart was not bigger in Canada than El Santo was in his country. The answer is they're not even in the same universe. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is let's go to Smithsonian Magazine. This is the closest that I could find because we don't have a list of the most loved Americans. You can only find like the most significant Americans, the most American Americans, the most influential people in American history.
The most American Americans.
You heard me. Most influential figures in American history. So let's go to Smithsonian Mag. Meet the 100 most significant Americans of all time. Okay? Let's look here at the top 10. If this page will ever load, which is questionable. All right. So, the most significant Americans. Here is the list, okay? They break it down by trailblazers and stuff. Never mind. Here's the point, everybody, okay? If you had a list of the 10 most beloved Americans of all time, okay? the most beloved Americans of all time. Here's a great example that everybody knows. Do you think that Elvis would be on that list of the top 10?
No.
You don't think he'd be on that list?
Of all
the top 10 most beloved Americans of all time in our culture. Right. Do you think Elvis would be on that list?
Yes, sure.
You do?
No, I don't actually.
I don't think that Elvis would be on that list, okay? Elvis is about as famous as can be. Elvis is way more famous in this country than Bret Hart is in Canada, okay? Santo's in like the top 5 in Mexico of the most beloved Mexicans of all time. Not wrestlers, not sports stars, not athletes or presidents or whatever. People in the culture. He's in the top 5. So, Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, they're in another universe. Ricky Dozan, Inoki, Big Daddy, none of them even come close to El Santo. Back in a moment, Observer Live. All right, here's a list of top 10 most famous, influential Americans. So you got to put Santo. Santo would be on this list if he were American. That's what I'm trying to say about Mexico. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Sacagawea, Abe Lincoln, Sitting Bull, Alexander Graham Bell, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, the Wright brothers. That's what we're talking about here with El Santo. So yes, more famous, in fact, than Bret Hart was in Canada. That's a famous guy.
I don't even know if Bret Hart is as famous as, like, Kiniski was at his prime in Canada. I mean, more people saw me. It's like The Rock and things like that. I'm sure more people have seen Mystico in his prime than maybe have seen El Santo. But, you know, again, the cultural significance. And I think they did a poll not all that long ago. He may not be in the top 5 anymore, but he's certainly in the top 10 when it comes to...
That was top 10 I just read.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to historical importance in Mexico. So, again, better for Dr. Lucha Steve Sims, but like you said, yeah, unfortunately, Bret Hart and Mr. Burns' mansion don't make the list.
This person says, why is the shakeup being advertised as international? Because it's in another country. That's why. They can draft anybody from anywhere, no matter where they're at. So it's not like, oh, they're going to draft people from NXT UK. They could do that anywhere. It just happens to not be, just like international incident. That meant it was not taking place in America. That's why they call it international incident. So it's an international shakeup because it's happening in Canada.
Just a gimmick, guys.
We're out of time, everybody. We're going to wrap it up for today. There's a lot on the front page. More to come over the next couple of days. We'll fill you in on the schedule the best we can. I want to thank you all for listening. Mike, as always, callers and listeners, everybody in the studio. Talk to you next time. Wrestling Observer Live. How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sunday, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. We got a lot to talk about here today. Last night was Smackdown. I was there, Smackdown in Everett. Had a lot of fun. Did you see the show? What did you think? Like I said, I had a good time. I thought the opening segment with Becky Lynch and Triple H and Charlotte was very good. They are absolutely playing off everybody's fear that Charlotte is going to be in the main event and take Becky's spot and steal her spotlight. So, what were your thoughts on the show last night? A lot of big things happened on the show. We've got all of the women teams for the Elimination Chamber match to determine the first ever WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. This, of course, is their storyline. There have been WWF Tag Team Champions before. In fact, 30 years ago, when we were watching the NWA show for Sunday's Bryan and Vinny show, that same week, the Jumping Bomb Angels lost the WWF Women's Tag Team titles. So they did exist, but they are back. They're going to be determined in the Elimination Chamber. We have 4 matches announced for that show thus far. The Men's Elimination Chamber match with Daniel Bryan defending the title. We've got the Women's Chamber with the Tag Team titles on the line. We have the Tag Team Championship match with the Usos versus Shane McMahon and The Miz, and we've got Buddy Murphy versus Akira Tozawa. So all of those matches are signed for the Chamber. Also got news on WWE going back to Saudi Arabia. We got the Raw ratings, a lot of other stuff as well. If you'd like to give us a call here today, you should know the number, 844-411-5411. You can send your text messages to 425-780-7566, whatever is on your mind. We will kick it off with Mike Sempervive coming up after the break. And yes, I am wearing my Giraffe shirt today. So if you want to grab one of these, at 4wonline.com/shirts, grab them. They're awesome. Back in a moment, Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. I got a lot of news to get into here today, but already a ton of very interesting emails here. All about last night, and you'll never guess, Becky Lynch and Charlotte. Jerry here says, after last night, they're totally going with the narrative that WWE management is picking Charlotte as their chosen one and trying to screw Becky out of the WrestleMania main event, just like with Daniel Bryan 5 years ago. That is exactly what they're doing. Like, if you listen to this show and have listened to this show over the last 2 weeks, I mean, they are trolling so many people with this segment here. Charlotte out there laughing and joking about how she's healthy and she'd love to be in that WrestleMania main event. Hunter going out there and threatening to take Becky out. And their goal is to make you so mad that Charlotte is going to get into that match, which is exactly how everyone is feeling in real life, by the way. I'm just so excited that we actually are going to have a WrestleMania main event this year where the babyface is going to be the most popular person in the entire building, and they're probably going to get their hand raised at the end. I don't know for sure, but I'd say 95% certain that Becky Lynch is going to win. I don't know if she'll beat Ronda. I mean, as Dave mentioned the other day, Ronda could very easily stick around for an extra month, and you could do the finish at Mania where Becky gets the win over Charlotte, wins the title, Ronda never got beaten, and then you do Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey in a singles match at the next show, and Becky gets her big win there. I mean, this is totally where I see this going. Am I wrong about this? I mean, I know some people are concerned here, but like they're playing up. They're building a storyline based on your concern, and I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a formula that they've done before, but it's a formula that works when you have the pieces of the puzzle in place for it, and it's perfect right now. And the most perfect thing that they have, or the most perfect thing about it, is the emotion of the fans, because there's a lot of them that legitimately believe, and again, anything could happen here. It is WWE. They could go and pull left anytime they want. But 95%, 99%, I'd even say, that Becky walks out of that thing as the champion. So this building up of playing on people's emotions, of fearing that Charlotte is going to come in, or that somehow Becky's moment is going to be ruined somehow, some way by somebody in this equation, it's great. It works. So I think this is one where there's been a lot of times where saying, give WWE the benefit of the doubt or give them some time and let's see how it plays out, doesn't work. Look at Raw, for heaven's sakes. But when it comes to this storyline, let this one play out. I'm really surprised still on how, I guess it shows you how popular Becky is, but how snowed that some people are with just, they are fully in belief. And I don't know if that's good for WWE, that there are so many people that are of the hardcore belief and the honest belief that they can ruin anything and that they're going to ruin Becky Lynch in the main event at WrestleMania.
Sportsneer says, Daniel Bryan was obviously given the welcome of a home state hero, but how was Becky reacted to last night, especially when Triple H went full heel on Becky and tried to wrong her? Well, she was over, but, I mean, the big issue is that there was nobody there last night. I mean, maybe 2,000 people. The Angel of the Winds, I'm not even sure how many that building holds. Let me check here. Angel of the Winds Arena is the former... I forget what it used to be called.
That place.
Yeah. Let's see. Capacity for, what would we say, hockey? Nah, not that big.
I don't know what was played there.
End stage concert. It's less than 10,000 people. So let's just say 9,000. Okay. So the entire upper bowl. Like sometimes people see the SmackDown pictures where they fill up all one side. It was literally, you had ringside, and you had the first row on the floor, like the 100 level. That's all they had. That's all it was there. There were no tickets sold for the second level. I'd say maybe at most 2,500 people there. It was a very, very small crowd. And she was over to those 2,500 people, but it was a small crowd last night.
Let me ask you something before you go on, because you've been to the last couple of these shows, and we've talked about it. There are people that don't pay attention to the quarterlies, so they may not know, other than you saying it or me saying it, that arena attendance has crapped the bed. You've been to most of those shows, or a lot of those shows in the last couple of years, whether it be Raw or SmackDown or house shows that come to that area. What has the decline been like? Has it been steady, or is this forever? And for the Seattle area, is this relatively sudden?
No, are you kidding me? Like they used to do great numbers around here. Raw does pretty well when they run in Seattle, but like the Raw shows that I've gone to, I mean, I don't want to say. I'll say it. The last time I went to the Angel of the Winds, I believe it was a house show, and the main event was Roman Reigns and the Drifter in a house show. And I'm not sure that this SmackDown did better than that house show did. I think and this was a television taping. Like this was a poorly attended show last night. Again, I don't know what the actual numbers were, but I was shocked when I showed up, and I was like, "This is it? Like, there's nobody here." So yeah. I also want to address this, since a lot of people are talking about it. This person says, and by the way, this is a fake Chris Jericho. I know you're upset with the fake Mike Sempervive. Here's a fake Chris Jericho. I presume this is not the real Chris Jericho. What is up with people calling Randy Orton unsafe all of a sudden? Well, here's what happened. Last night he was wrestling Mustafa Ali, and when the match was over, Mustafa Ali posted pictures on his Instagram, and his eye was completely swollen shut because he got stomped on accidentally by Randy Orton. And I tweeted out that it was an accident, tweeted out a picture of it, and of course everybody on Twitter is all of a sudden talking about how Randy Orton, I shouldn't say everybody, it was one guy, says, "Oh, Randy Orton's reckless." I was like, what's this geek talking about? Like, nobody, I've never heard anybody say that Randy Orton was reckless. So then more people, including the Disco Inferno, bring up that there was that incident where Randy Orton was giving the back suplex to the Singh brothers, and he dropped him on the announce table. He almost killed one of them. There's an animated GIF all over Twitter right now of him nearly killing this guy, and then he's got that look on his face like, ooh, man, that sucked. So, as a worker, I'm going to tell you what I think happened, okay? First off, the stomp last night was absolutely a total accident, okay? Randy Orton was going for the Garvin Stomp, okay? When you do the Garvin Stomp, the victim just lays there, and you stomp all around his body, okay? So, I don't know if Mustafa Ali got confused or what, but Randy Orton goes to do the Garvin Stomp, and he goes to sell it and, like, sit up and do the whole thing. So, as he's sitting up, Randy's going for another stomp, and he stomps the guy right in the face. If Mustafa Ali would have just laid there, this would not have happened. But because he sold it in a different way than he should have, he sat right up into a stomp. It was a total accident, okay? The stuff with the Singh brothers. Randy Orton wrestles large men, like 99% of the time. And these are big dudes that, like, they go up a little bit, but, like, they don't fly up in the air when he goes to lift them, okay? These Singh brothers are used to wrestling small guys, and they go up for him. So what happened was, Randy Orton went to lift this guy. This guy went up for him. Randy wasn't expecting the guy to go up that easy, and so he gave him a little bump, and the dude flew 10 feet in the air. Okay? Now, the reason I know this is because he then did the move to the other Singh brother, and it was perfect. Okay? Because he adjusted the second time. The same thing happened with Brock, except that was even worse because Brock gave both Singh brothers 2 Germans. So what happened was, he goes to throw the first guy goes up for him, so that Singh brother goes 20 feet in the air and lands on his head. Brock goes to the other Singh brother. This time he knows not to throw him so hard. That Singh brother knows, I better not go up for this guy. So it's like a low, bad German. So then Brock goes back to the first Singh brother, and now he thinks, well, I better lift this guy a little more. This guy flies up 20 feet in the air again, nearly kills himself. And he goes back to the other guy and adjusts, and this guy barely goes up. So you could actually see it happening back and forth as everybody involved was trying to adjust to not kill each other, but accidents happen in pro wrestling. So no, Randy Orton is not an unsafe worker.
Here, let me look at this from a fan perspective. Guy's been wrestling for 20 years. How many people has he intentionally really hurt? Okay? How many things have you ever heard about Randy Orton? Things happen. It doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. He's not unsafe. Shut up, Disco.
Back in a moment, Observer Live. All right, I'm checking on something right now, so let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hi, Brian. Hi, Mike. How are you?
What's happening?
Everything and anything, man. So this is not to go too off topic here, but did you hear Garrett's suggestion last night on Wrestling Observer Radio, his idea?
What was his idea?
So the Crockett Cup is coming up, and him and Dave were saying how there might not be too many tag teams available for it, given AEW and ROH just sign up all the talent. So he suggested that the Chop and Roll Express should put their names in there.
Hey.
What do you think about that?
You know, I had that suggestion by Tom, but you know, the thing is, like, I still have only teamed with him one time. We've been trying to team together for a year now. We've had one match in July. Every other match has fallen through, so I have no faith in this right now.
To redeem yourself. Jim Cornette's going to be there. He's a very encouraging individual, I'm sure.
Yes.
He's going to commentate on your match.
It would be something else. We'll see what happens.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, well, I want to thank you very much for the call. All right, well, here's the thing, everybody. I got a text here, and this is one of these things with the internet. This person says, did you see what the Fox Entertainment CEO told the media today? SmackDown will be on Fridays short term, and also other WWE programming is going to air on FS1. Now, let's just do this. Here's Pro Wrestling Insider's report, okay? Fox Entertainment CEO Charlie Collier told media assembled today for Fox's presentation at the network's Television Critics Association 2019 gathering that SmackDown will be replacing Fox comedies on Fridays this fall, with those shows being moved to other nights on the network. A reference was made by Collier to SmackDown being on Fridays short term, which certainly leaves the window of opportunity for the series to be moved to another night down the line. It was also stated that other programming would appear on Fox Sports 1, but what that programming could be was not specified. As far as the network itself, Fox, their current deal is for SmackDown and SmackDown alone. And he noted he grew up as a longtime pro wrestling fan. Now, there's another article here from GameSpot, which basically covers all of this right here. And there's nothing in the GameSpot article that mentions...
Does GameSpot have reporters?
They do here. There's a big story. There's a lot of comments from him. It's live, he says. What's remarkable is these are people that know their audience. They're great storytellers, he says. I think it fits beautifully with what we're doing. And it talks about how there is more WWE content planned for the new partnership, treating wrestling more as a sport than a weekly episode TV series. That'll be good. Fox Sports Network, FS1, and others will have some other wrestling, not live SmackDown, not Raw, but other ties to the WWE world. And nothing in this article about SmackDown being short-term. So,
GameStop, by the way. Sorry.
What did I say?
No,
it's GameSpot.
So I don't know what's what here.
No, this is GameSpot. Yeah. So anyway, no mention there of SmackDown being short-term. So I'm sure there's some stuff on Twitter. We'll see what that means. I mean, maybe it'll be like during rerun season, SmackDown will be on Fox, and then when...
Sounds like a guy covering his bases.
Rerun season is over, they move back. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm sure there's a whole entertainment part of that division that doesn't want WWE there. They'd rather see some sort of comedy or scripted drama or something else there. So I could see where he may want to cover himself up a little bit. And, you know, just because he mentioned that FS1 may get some programming, he said, doesn't mean that SmackDown is dead set to go there. If this thing gets great ratings, everybody's mind changes. You know what I mean? The numbers are what matters there. So if they're surprised by it and it's doing well for them and it's building them up on a day where they can move some things into other places and build up those days, then, you know, everything's probably going to be fine. I think when this thing was initially announced, people had talked about a possibility of them doing a studio show and things like that that could end up on FS1. That could be what they mean. Bringing back
God, can you imagine?
Well, bring back a Saturday night's main event that goes off. I mean, if you have no basketball or late college football or something like that, is it an easy way to fill 11:30 to 1 or something like that, or put it on at a time where you don't have a whole lot going on? Sure. So I think people are going to – obviously this is a hot-button issue for a lot of reasons, and it's a very exciting time, but I don't know if anything that guy said, at least the way it was reported, really means anything.
Sportsneer says, no Bryan and Vinny and Craig show? Yes, I talked about this yesterday. We're in the middle of a deep freeze. This is the worst weather we've had in a decade. Vinny's got like 12 inches of snow and ice. Can't get out here. Craig can't get out here. I managed to get to Smackdown and back, but that was not that far away. So, yes, there was no Bryan and Vinny and Craig show tonight, but the temps are supposed to hit the 40s tomorrow. And so the plan right now is the retro show is going to be Thursday, and we'll move Granny. That's my plan right now. And then we should be back to normal, but I can't promise anything because it looks like we may have another storm coming in, which could drop 12 inches of snow, and that would be the end of the Bryan and Vinny show till it warms up. I think people understand is, in a lot of places that get a lot of snow, it's like cold. Here's let me tell you about weather, everybody.
Oh, God.
Shut up, Mike. Listen.
By the way, you also explain in all this why you couldn't use Skype or something like that.
A lot of people, a lot of places, I'll explain that too. A lot of places get snow because it's cold. All right? So you're dealing with snow. Here, we have a little bit more mild temperatures, and the roadways are a little bit warmer. So what happens here is it snows, and then it melts just a little bit, and then it freezes. And so everywhere in this hilly land is a sheet of ice.
Something's getting wet.
And because this is not, for example, Minnesota, Saskatchewan, like we don't have 50,000 snow plows or whatever to solve this problem. So, like everybody making fun of Seattle and how the snow's not so bad, like I don't want to go on Twitter and look around at some of the real horrible things that have happened around here because of this weather. So anyway, no, Vinny's not going to drive out here in the snow and ice from North Bend to do the Bryan and Vinny show. And no, we're not going to do it over Skype because it sucks. And if you've ever listened to the show, every time we do a Bryan and Vinny show via remote, it's horrible. And so we can reschedule it, and then everything will be happy. So that's the story there, everyone. And no, I'm not looking forward to 12 inches of snow. Snowpocalypse, this guy says. Oh. Yeah. And we're not dropping Granny. She'll be moved to Sunday's show. That's the plan. Person says, why are the viewership numbers under 3 million for Raw during WrestleMania season? Horrible news for WWE. Because they've run off the audience. That's why. They're down 20% year to year. This other person here asking about the women's audience says, where is it here? I got so many text messages. Basically, the female teen audience for WWE is way down, and people are wondering why. And I'm not a female teen. That may surprise some people, but I'm not. So I can't speak for teenage females, all right? But what I do know is there are two possibilities here, okay? One of them is the big dog was driving the female viewership with his long, beautiful black hair. And now he's gone, and so they're out of here. That's a possibility, okay? The other thing is, and again, I am not a teenage female, but when I watch that show, I like to think to myself, if I were like a female viewer, what would I think of this women's evolution? And, I mean, my wife is also not a teenage female, but whenever she hears about the women's evolution, she's like, what? An evolution? We aren't evolved? She's like aghast at all of this. And I've had many people text the show that their wives and girlfriends watch it and they don't like aspects of it. And, I mean, listen, you got a women's evolution on Raw where there are 14 women on the roster. 11 are unlikable heel characters and 3 are baby faces. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that women are not, whatever the term would be, enamored by this women's evolution. I mean, if I were a woman, I sure wouldn't be. So, I'm sure I'll get text messages about this from people whose wives and girlfriends watch, but I just look at it and they need more female writers. They need more women who can write for women and not dudes that write for women and apparently think that every woman is unlikable and they all hate each other and they're all catty and they're involved in these wretched segments like that Alexa Bliss segment on Monday where she's fawning all over EC3. This stuff sucks. So I think there's a lot of aspects here.
I think the major one is it kind of sucks, and nothing's hot right now except for really, there's the Becky Lynch thing, a little bit with Daniel Bryan, but for the most part, filling the 5 hours of programming that you have, let alone with pay-per-views and everything else, there's just not enough good taking place, and shows are too long and all that sort of stuff too, but bottom line is they don't have stars, and they haven't wrapped their audience with anything, and I know there are some people that are upset over the Becky Lynch thing, it's not pushing ratings out, doesn't matter. Keep building on at least one thing that's working here. You know what I mean? And we're going into WrestleMania season, and I know there's 2 pay-per-views, and we still got some time left, but, this is as soft as we've ever come out of a Royal Rumble, at least in my opinion. I don't know. It's been a while since we've come out of the Royal Rumble limping in the way that we have leading into, looking at WrestleMania.
I got so many different topics here. We're going to head to a break, come back. I'm going to do some news, and then we'll get to as many of these as we can. Back in a moment, Observer Live. All right, we'll go back to the phones in a second, but first a little bit of news. After their 10-year deal began with 2 controversy-filled shows, WWE is set to make their return to Saudi Arabia in May. Fightful reported today WWE's next show in Saudi Arabia takes place on Friday, May 3rd. Dave Meltzer confirmed WWE will be returning to Saudi Arabia in early May. He reported in December WWE has dates in Saudi Arabia booked for May and November of 2019. When asked to confirm the date of the May show, WWE responded, quote, "They haven't announced it yet." Thanks. Following last week's post-Royal Rumble edition of Raw, Monday's episode had a ratings drop of 7%, falling to an average of 2.51 million viewers. So the number that we were given yesterday claimed to be from somebody who worked at the, I guess, wherever it was, 2.6 million. That was wrong. Hour 1, 2.656 million viewers. Hour 2, 2.552 million. Hour 3, 2.321 million viewers. Year to year, a drop of 18%, very close to the recent trend. There was no major ratings drop in hours 2 or 3, so having Becky and Ronda appear near the beginning of the show didn't lead to either a big first hour or a viewership decline after their appearances. So everybody was wondering, why'd they bring her out there and then get rid of her? Didn't matter. You've also got Ring of Honor announcing New Japan Pro Wrestling ROH War of the Worlds Tour for 2019. Buffalo, New York, May 8th. Continuing to Toronto, Ontario, Canada on Thursday, May 9th. Grand Rapids, May 11th. Chicago on May 12th. They've added a Cruiserweight title match to the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. It is Buddy Murphy versus Akira Tozawa. That joins the Daniel Bryan Chamber match with AJ, Randy Orton, Jeff Hardy, Mustafa Ali, Samoa Joe. The Women's Elimination Chamber match for the tag titles. Nia Jax and Tamina versus Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan versus Sasha and Bayley versus Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville versus Peyton and Billy versus Naomi and Carmella. And I mean this in the nicest way possible. I liked Smackdown last night.
How was that 3-way?
That 3-way was horrible. I mean this in the nicest way possible. It was horrible. And I do not have high hopes for this Women's Elimination Chamber match. I'm actually dreading it in some ways. Maybe they'll have a lot of time to work on it the afternoon of the show. Maybe it's going to end up okay. But, yeah. Here's the thing to me, everybody. And they got some new agents. So hopefully the new agents... All I know is that I've seen some of these... In the Women's Royal Rumble is one of them. To me, when you're putting a show together, especially if it's like an elimination match... I mean, to me, okay, you get the bad people out of the way first. You eliminate them. And you leave the best workers in there. And then by the end, you've got a pretty good match. And the Women's Royal Rumble turned into a pretty good match, but the first 2/3 of that Women's Royal Rumble, it was wretched. And I saw girls like Liv Morgan eliminated instantly. And then there were other girls, like, who's a new girl's name? Already forgotten.
With the hat, Lacey Evans?
Lacey Evans. Like, she's in there for 30 minutes. It's like, Liv Morgan isn't the greatest wrestler in the world, but she's like 1,000 times better than Lacey Evans. So, like, why is she out in 2 seconds and Lacey Evans is in there for 30 minutes? Like, who's booking this match? So, hopefully they get, like, the Iconics out of there quickly, get Carmella out of there quickly. I don't know who else. God, it's just going to be rough.
Well, how do you feel about Sonya and Mandy?
Mandy's pretty good. Actually, they're all right. They can be in there for a while. Billie Kay, like, is very bad. Peyton is a little bit better. Carmella is very bad. Naomi's all right. Actually, she can be pretty good. Sasha and Bayley will be good. Mandy's pretty good. Sonya has improved a lot.
Like we talked about, though, with Sasha, in that somebody's going to be doing stunts. And somebody's going to be doing moves. We don't need
stunts in this match.
But you know it's going to happen, and that's where the fear of Sasha comes in.
Ugh. Let's go to the phones.
Because it may not necessarily be her. It'll be the two people catching her if she dies off a pod or something like that.
Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up?
Hey, boys, what's up? So, I mean, you got Alexa Bliss that did the Twist of Bliss off the pod last year. So,
yes, you
did.
did.
Imagine Billie Kay or...
No, they won't use those two. It'll be Sasha or... Somebody.
Right, but can you imagine those two trying to get thrown into the cage and sell a cage shot like that? I mean, this is just going to be awful. It's just going to be a mess. But with that being said, WWE is going back to Saudi Arabia. We're less than 6 months removed from that horrific stuff that happened with the journalist that got killed, and here we are a few weeks away from them going back to Saudi Arabia. And I mean, has the past things that have happened, have they blown over with the media, especially with the Super Bowl commercial, with the Washington Post? And I mean, do you think they'll be more ready this time around than they were last time with the PR that got they got crushed last time?
Do they need to be? Because it looked like an outrage cycle. It didn't look like anybody was consistent, or there's not been as many people being as consistent and keeping up with their frustrations and their disappointment and their outrage over them going over there and then doing what they did on Raw the next night, kind of making light of, maybe not making light intentionally, I don't know what it was, but it certainly seemed that way to kind of troll people after Khashoggi was murdered. So the way they're looking at this is, their wool kept spinning, they kept making money, and then everything kind of died out for a while because then they presented a show that people liked, and everybody kind of put that stuff to the side, and there were all those people that talked about getting rid of the WWE Network. Doesn't seem like they did that. So, I mean, until they really get their feet held to the fire, until they really feel it, we'll have to see. I just don't think that any of the declines that they've suffered, anything that's happened currently with them, has got anything to do with that, and unless you can draw a line to it, they're not going to care.
Hey,
sucks.
All I know is they announced this, and I heard nothing about it. And WWE flat out said in their statement the last time, we made a deal and we're going. And I mean, maybe some of the other wrestlers will say they don't want to go again. I mean, Daniel Bryan's the champion now, so that's going to be interesting if he decides that he's not going to go. I mean, the thing with people, I guarantee within 5 minutes, I will get a text message here from somebody that says, I canceled the WWE Network because of Crown Jewel and I've never gone back. Yes, those people do exist. It's a tiny... the people that really are going to cancel their WWE Network, I mean, if this were the 90s and you had a huge audience and you had the hardcores and you had the casuals, and you had your buddies at school and at work, then yeah, something like this happens, and you may actually lose, I don't want to say a substantial, but maybe a small amount of people would just give up and they'd move on to something else in their lives, because they're not hardcores. They're just they're going along with the latest fad, pro wrestling. That's how it was in the 90s. It was a fad. Now, they're down to the hardest of the hardcore. How many times have we talked about the stuff that they do? The false advertising, pulling Becky Lynch off shows for a fake injury after advertising her, going to Saudi Arabia despite the outrage and so many other media entities not going there and entertainment entities. I mean, they're down to the hearts of the hardcore, and these people will accept anything. And like Becky Lynch, let me tell you something. The audience that we've got right now, they're so passionate about Becky Lynch, and they're so angry that Charlotte's going to be in that match. Let me tell you something. If they removed Becky Lynch from the Ronda match, and it was Ronda versus Charlotte, and Becky versus Asuka at WrestleMania, I would get 1 million text messages from people telling me that they're going to cancel their subscription to the WWE Network. And you want to know what happened after WrestleMania when we got the numbers? Nothing would happen. Because what they have left right now, these people will accept anything. No matter how loudly and bitterly they complain about it, they will accept anything. That's where we're at right now. So they're going to go to Saudi Arabia. People may or may not complain, but they're not going to do anything about it. And I don't want to make people mad right now. Don't get mad at me. I'm just telling you based on the numbers that they have right now. Like, these are the hardest of the hardcore. They're going to accept anything. Then they're going to defend anything. Yes, small numbers of them, probably that listen to this show, may decide, I'm done. But it is not at any substantial number that's going to affect WWE business. That's just where we're at right now.
And I do know people that have canceled the network and then done the gimmick thing where they look at it as they're not giving them money. They're moving emails around. They're doing that gimmick. The thing with that is, and that's a good idea because at least I guess in one way you could say, I'm not putting any money in their pocket, but the catch with that is they don't care. They don't care how many freebies they have. They don't care if they gave away 3 months for 99 cents. They don't care about this, that, or anything. They just care about a number that they can go and tout out there and go make money off of that way. So for those of the people that are doing that and thinking, well, at least, justifying it in their mind, well, I'm not giving them any money. Yes, you are.
All right, let's go into some of these text messages here. We got a lot of them. First says, the women's Smackdown match was appalling. It looked appalling in person. I don't know how it was on TV. First says, how about the fact that Asuka submitted Becky clean, hasn't been on TV for 2 straight weeks? I tried to tell you. Nobody likes to listen to me. But everybody had 9 million excuses and reasons and this and that for Asuka tapping her out clean in the middle. And my theory was it was done merely so that you would be surprised when she came out and won the Royal Rumble. And so far, it looks like that's the reason. There has been no mention of Asuka. I was at the show last night, and her Titantron began, and I thought, my God, she's on the show, but it was just something for commercial. It was an Asuka video package. She's vanished. Like, she's not part of this story right now. So, it's one of those things.
I'm still okay with it for right now as long as she's cooled off. If she comes back and the first thing she does is get pinned clean in 5 minutes by Charlotte Flair or something like that, then I got a problem. If they're doing this because Becky is hot and they got other things going on and they don't necessarily have the best plan for her, I'm okay with this. You can always go back to her saying, I was the last one to submit Becky Lynch. You could do whatever you want there, but obviously they want to ignore it for right now, but they're ignoring her for right now, and I don't think that's the worst thing in the world unless they have something good.
Per says, I'm just waiting for Charlotte to put a figure 8 on Becky and really mess that knee up. It seems like such an obvious thing to do. Looks like Asuka's buying ad time on SmackDown to look for an opponent. Maybe that did air on TV. Did that air on TV, the Asuka thing last night? I thought it was only for the arena.
No.
All right, well, there you go. Cool, she's got a video package. Excellent. But great usage of the champion that just tapped out the hottest star, allegedly, in the entire company.
You just talked about a bunch of women who suck in the ring. You want to see her go in there and just have a sucky match with somebody else? Who cares?
She's not going to have a sucky match.
They have other irons in the fire right now. You got 3 months or 2 months till WrestleMania. Don't worry about this that much.
Mike,
save your outrage for something else.
No, I can be outraged about this. Look at this Elimination Chamber. Nia, Tamina, Liv, Sarah Logan, Sasha Bailey, Mandy, Sonya, Naomi, Carmella, Peyton, and Billy.
How does having the singles women's champion, who is above all of those people by leaps and bounds anyway, how does it make any sense having her in that match?
Give her a partner and let her make the match better. Dude, who cares?
Get out of here.
Dude.
Get out of town.
You get out of town. I can't get out of town.
That's right. And that's also why you can't do a show with Vinny and...
get out of here. Weren't Carmella and Naomi supposed to qualify last night? Yeah, originally. Then they just put them in. They changed their minds. Not my fault.
Do they do that?
Apparently not. It's always me being wrong. even though they do all the time. But it says, I find it funny last night that Jeff Hardy said Daniel Bryan was being disrespectful to the championship by changing the design to a hemp belt, when in TNA he had that monstrosity of a custom title when he was champion. Kind of sounds like a hypocrite to me. Now, it sounds like writers who didn't watch TNA. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. This person says, regarding Charlotte in the Mania main event, it's not about her winning. It's that a singles match is more prestigious, and Becky deserves it for getting herself over. Everybody, it's fake. Do y'all understand what's going on here? Wrestling is fake. It's a story. Like, do you go to a movie, and if a character needs to die in the movie, you get really upset about it because the person that played that character was the best actor? Like, this is not about people deserving a fake belt or deserving this or deserving that. Okay? It's the story they're telling. And the story they want to tell is that Becky is trying to get the main event of WrestleMania, and Charlotte is trying to shoehorn her way in. You're supposed to be angry about it. The babyface is going to overcome the odds at the end. Like, there's no... You can make up prestige or deserving or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's a bunch of normal people, it's a bunch of human beings playing characters in stories that are written by a 73-year-old guy, and maybe or maybe not winning fake belts that mean nothing. They don't make more money if they win a fake belt than if they don't. They don't get more endorsements or sponsors. It's all just a story. It's like a stage play or a movie. And this is the story that they want to tell. And Becky's going to get the main event of WrestleMania. And she's probably at some point going to beat Ronda Rousey, the only person in professional wrestling to ever beat Ronda Rousey. Like, I can't believe that people are so upset about this. She's getting so much here. Like, look at her a year ago. She was on the pre-show, for crying out loud. I don't know. Out of time, everybody. I want to thank you all for listening. Mike, as always, callers and listeners, everybody in the studio, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Wrestling Observer Live. How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sundays, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Got a lot of news to get into here today. Pardon me. I'm doing my best here. Got a lot to get into here today. We have got the WWE fourth quarter and year-end earnings report. We're going to talk about this a lot when we come back from the break. There's a lot to get into here today. They had their record revenues. So, of course, everybody listening to this show and likes to claim that everything's great. Now I got something to hang your hat on. But we'll tell you why there's good news and bad news in this earnings report here. Obviously, the good news, we'll just get it right out at the top of the show here. I mean, if you're a WWE fan and you don't care what they do, I mean, it's not going out of business anytime soon. I'll tell you that much. They are here for the long haul. So that's the main good news. We'll get into the rest of it after the break. Smackdown, however, lowest audience total since the brand split, 1.841 million viewers. Of course, it was going up against the State of the Union, so can't really take that too seriously. 30 million viewers for the State of the Union, so you can kind of throw that one out. We got lawsuits filed regarding the Lucha Underground contracts, led by Hijo del Fantasma, King Cuerno, and others involved include Joey Ryan, Cobra Moon, Fantasma, and Ivelisse. We got notes on WWE hiring an NFL All-Pro punter who's going to be doing some stuff with WWE. XFL has unveiled a high-profile name as the head coach and general manager of the Dallas team, and a lot more. In the final segment of the show, the Doctor of Lucha himself is going to join us. We got a lot to talk about, including AAA. They are moving to TV Azteca after losing their television. We'll talk about that, plus the life of El Santo. Anniversary of his death was, I believe, Tuesday, so we could talk about that today as well. All Elite Wrestling, big deal today in Vegas. Ticket party for their upcoming show, 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern tonight. Dave Meltzer is there. We'll talk about that over the weekend as well. Lots to get into. Back in a moment with Mike Sempervive and more. Wrestling Observer Alive. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. We got a lot to get into here today. Well, let's start with the WWE earnings report that came out here today. Vince McMahon on the conference call noted they achieved record revenue and profit, which is in fact true. And he said, and I quote, "We know what we're doing." So here's the good news and the bad news. Obviously, the good news is revenues, $903 million for the year, beating out the $801 million that they made in 2017. $99.6 million in net income, up from $32.6 million in 2017. WWE Network closed the year 1.563 million subscribers, 1.528 million paid, 35,000 free. Revenues were $63.5 million for the fourth quarter, up from $20.6 million for 2017. So, obviously, that's all good news. And the reason for a lot of that is the Saudi shows. So, if you're wondering why there was so much controversy over Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia, and they were determined to go and not lose this deal, this is why. Revenue increases attributed to an increase in TV rights fees and their annual deal with the Saudi Arabian government, in addition to the Australia Stadium show, which was in quarter four. The Saudi and Australian shows were listed under other, so the exact per-show takes were not broken out. So that's the good news. They've got a lot of money coming in. And hey, at the end of this year, when those Fox deals kick in, for the next 3 years or so, these revenue numbers are going to go even higher. So if you love WWE, and you think that we nitpick, and you think the shows are great, you don't understand why people complain, you don't understand why Dean Ambrose wants out, well, this company is going nowhere anytime soon. They are swimming in money, and the pool is about to be filled. They're going to go from a regular pool to an Olympic-sized pool over the next 3 years. That's the good news. Now, if you want to look at some of the negatives to this, because there are some, if you look at wrestling operations, the company has announced they will no longer release a network subscription number the day after WrestleMania. They always did that. And so if you recall, there were 9 million gimmicks during Royal Rumble season to try to get people to sample the network for free. And they would therefore hope that they would not quit. And then the day after WrestleMania, they could announce a bigger number than the year before. Now, my guess is that the reason that they're no longer doing this is because now that they have these new television deals that are going to escalate year after year, the network number is not something that they need to push to investors. And the reality is, this is where the network number is going to stay. So they're not going to be able to get it up year after year. I mean, you could argue that if you want to, but I'm going to give you some numbers here in a second. Live event revenue down. $151.7 million last year, $144.2 million this year. House show numbers down. Average attendance last year, 5,400. Average attendance this year, 5,000. Raw and SmackDown viewership numbers down. 15% down for Raw, 14% down for SmackDown. So the actual wrestling operations, if you take away the Saudi deal and you take away the television deals, this company is not doing great when it comes to promoting professional wrestling. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because they have these television deals. But as Dave talked about last night on the Observer Radio show, the Fox deal, Fox, they did say that SmackDown going to Friday is temporary. That was stated during the call. And as Dave noted last night, this is what happened. Their numbers were up year over year last year during negotiations period, during a time when the Fox Friday night shows were not doing well. And so it was a perfect storm, much like the one that is hitting Seattle right now. That meant that they got a $1 billion deal from Fox to move SmackDown to Friday. Now, since signing that deal, SmackDown numbers are doing not well. 14% down year over year. The Tuesday show was terrible, although it was against State of the Union address. Friday's shows on Fox are now doing better. And so it's looking like they're not going to put SmackDown in that slot over the long haul because the shows they have now are doing better than SmackDown is going to do. So SmackDown, I don't know this for sure. I saw a lot of things reported on the internet that I said as a fact when there are no facts here until everything shakes down, but it's looking like SmackDown's probably going to start on Fox and end up on FS1. We'll see what happens, but that's certainly the indications right now. So, that also suggests that they are lucky they signed that deal when they did, because if the negotiating period were right now, they're not getting $1 billion for SmackDown. But what's done is done, and so they're good for the next 3 years or however long the deal is. 5 years, I believe it is. So a couple of other notes. The WWE Network in 2018, I'll go to 2017 first. This is, we'll just say last year because we're looking at year over year. In 2017, the network decline from WrestleMania to the end of the year was 190,000. So all the people that signed up for WrestleMania, they lost 190,000 by the time the year was over. Last year, by the time the year was over, all those subscribers that they had at WrestleMania, they lost 280,000. Not quite double, but 100,000 more they lost. So the retention rate of the WWE Network from WrestleMania to the end of the year was much worse in 2018 than it was in 2017. The Saudi Arabia show that everybody ranted and raved about, going by the numbers here, it appears that about 37,000 people quit WWE Network because of Crown Jewel. Now, when you look at the total number of people subscribing, I believe it's 1.59 million paid. The 37 million subscribers it's a drop in the hat, really. I shouldn't say a drop in the hat, but it's not that bad. But there were 37,000 people that apparently they were done after Crown Jewel. They quit their subscriptions, and that was the end of it for now. So those are the numbers, the good news and the bad news. And Mike, any thoughts on any of that?
They're really rich, and they're going to be even richer next year. Looking at over $1 billion in revenue. What's that? The OBDA looking at over $200 million next year. So they're going to go to Saudi Arabia twice, which is going to pad their pockets nicely. So it is what it is, and if you're an investor or if you're just somebody who just doesn't care and is a WWE fan, and as long as there's something on your screen, you're that kind of fan that just will get into it as much as you're going to get into it and then out again. How can you not be happy about this? I mean, this is fantastic for the bottom line. You mentioned some of the other problems that they had that are going to creep up on them, the TV ratings, the house show attendance, the lack of star building. Vince made sure to point out John Cena and Roman Reigns not being there and saying that they've had more injuries than usual, and we're going to see a correction, and things will get better again, and there's a rainbow and a pot at the end, gold event at the end of it and all that stuff. Great, but unfortunately we're in a situation where those 37,000 people that quit the network, that shouldn't be underestimated. But even though they did that, and even though there's so much bad will going on with WWE in so many ways and so many aspects, as well as the declining ratings and everything else, none of it matters. Like a lot of things in this country, none of it matters because the bottom line is huge, and it's just going to be a battle that a lot of people are going to have to fight for a long time. But WWE, Vince won. That is for absolutely sure. Vince did win.
So going back to Crown Jewel very quickly, I don't know what WWE profits off every subscription. So like if I pay $9.99, obviously they're not making the entire $9.99. Part of it's going to go to the streaming service, and if I recall correctly, it's less than $5 per subscriber. But I'm just going to use $5. I'll just cut it in half just to be fair, because it could be around there. If 37,000 people quit over Crown Jewel over the course of an entire year, if they never come back, it's costing the company $2.2 million. And I can absolutely guarantee that the Saudi Arabia deal is worth like 25 times that. So they don't care that you quit over Crown Jewel. It's much more important to run Crown Jewel and 2 Saudi shows every year than you quitting. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Right. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. Just want to mention, we're talking about Crown Jewel and losing WWE Network subscribers and how much it's going to cost them. They're running 2 shows a year. And if they lost 37,000 at Crown Jewel, I mean, to me, there's no way the number is going to be 37,000 for the upcoming shows. I think it's going to be significantly lower. Like, if you didn't cancel, if you didn't cancel after everything surrounding Crown Jewel, I don't picture you canceling. So that $2.2 million is like a one-time fee. It's not even like that's how much they lose every time they run a show in Saudi Arabia. So it's all about the money. It's a business. They got shareholders. It's all about the money. And that's the way things go.
It is all about the money. It certainly is. Although being beaten to death with the fact that it's making them so much money, and that being their justification, still doesn't make it right. And is still, this is still a company that when they did come back from that, after all that controversy, after all that sidestepping that they did leading into the show, when people had questioned them on it and pressed them on it, that they did a dismemberment joke or made light of it, it's like, it is still amazing that they're able to operate really in a bubble. It's still, even though as much as wrestling has changed and then the whole business of how this whole thing is looked at has changed, it's still amazing that they're able to operate somewhat in a bubble. It really is.
All right, let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up? Hello. You've been on the phone a long time. What's going on? Clearly he fell asleep. Thank God I opened up the phones here today. A very important call right there. All right, other news, the Smackdown number, terrible, going up against the State of the Union. Should be noted that last year at this time, the show also went up against the State of the Union, and this was down 500,000 from last year. Granted, this is probably a bigger State of the Union than the one last year. This week's Smackdown, lowest audience since the July 2016 brand split. 1.841 million viewers, previous low. 1.921 set on election night 2016. Maybe the only time in history Smackdown failed to crack the top 20 in total cable viewers for the day. Trailing news-related programming and coverage of the speech itself, Smackdown fell all the way to 10th in the 18 to 49 demo with a 0.64 rating. Most weeks Smackdown finishes first or second in that demo. We've also got today in Las Vegas the All Elite Ticket on sale party, where they're going to make a lot of big announcements for the future and some signings. I would say with a fair amount of certainty that Kenny Omega is going to be announced as signing with All Elite Wrestling. During the conference call today, they were asked about All Elite Wrestling, and I forget the exact line that they had, but it was something to the effect of, we have no idea what's going to happen, but we are the best wrestling in the world with the best wrestlers. That was their reaction to All Elite Wrestling. So, hey, they're the biggest. They are the biggest, and they have the most wrestlers.
They are a promotional company.
Undoubtedly true.
What do you say? Hey, we suck. The numbers that they show at the presser. I mean, some of them may show that how much they suck in some ways, but yeah, I mean, I don't expect them to say anything else.
Yeah. So the exact line was that it's too early to tell what will happen with All Elite Wrestling, but WWE is the top company in the world with the best wrestlers.
We're monitoring the situation.
They were monitoring that situation. That's true. I heard all about it that day. There was strong monitoring going on of that situation there. We also got Ring of Honor announcing something big tonight at 5 Eastern, trying to get a jump on All Elite Wrestling.
Thunder stealing going on here. We're in a war, brother.
This person wants to know any discussion about increasing the WWE Network monthly price. I didn't hear anything. Could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know, but I didn't see anything about that. So, yeah, the network is not as big a priority anymore. They got television. And with the network numbers down so much, like 250,000 down from WrestleMania this year, I mean, it's not going to be a big thing on those calls anymore. They got stuff to talk about like television deals that are doing very, very well.
Yeah, there was something in the forum yesterday about somebody bantering about, including Tim in Miami, about what the baseline is for WWE now when it comes to their fans. When I guess this was in relation to talking about declining TV ratings. And to me, the easiest way to determine what the baseline is for WWE is the network number. And it's like they had projected 1.56. They ended up with 1.85, and they're looking at 1.59 for quarter one with the Royal Rumble and everything. So there you go. 1.6 million is probably the baseline for WWE. Wouldn't that be fair to say?
1.6?
Yeah, around 1.6 million people. That is WWE's hardest core baseline. You can't drop. I guess you could.
You could always drop, but
I know that. But
here's the thing: when they had those Christmas and New Year's Eve Raws, and like Smackdown or whatever it was, dropped down to like 1.7 million viewers. Like 1.7 million viewers and 1.5 million WWE Network subscribers. I mean, that is the hardest of the hardcore. The hardest of the hardest of the hardcore. I think it was Tim in Miami said, well, they're not down to the hardest of the hardcore because the numbers are still dropping. And he's wrong. Because you can lose the hardest of the hardcore. Okay, the hardest of the hardcore aren't, like, if you're on our message board, okay, you are among the hardest of the hardcore. You're paying $10.99 a month to listen to me and Dave, $11.99, whatever it is. I don't even know what it is anymore. But you're paying that money to listen to us talk about it, and you're talking about it on a paid message board. You're the hardest of the hardcore, and guess what? There's a lot of people that subscribe to us that are no longer watching Raw and SmackDown. So we are at the hardest of the hardcore, and yes, you can still run off the hardest of the hardcore. It's a lot harder, but these are the hardcores watching right now, and 1.7 million is the hardest of the hardcore. But don't think that you can't run those people off, because you can.
In some of those comments in the forum, and I know this to be true. I mean, there are people that have been watching that are our age that lived through, each boom period, the Hogan era, boom period, the Attitude Era, ECW, all that sort of stuff, and the Cena and all that. Our whole lifespan there. I saw this also happen with WCW, where people that had been watching for 30 years, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, most certainly in the 70s, especially with the satellite and the expansion of cable TV, and they became monster consumers of wrestling. At the very least, they loved their local wrestling. Georgia being one big thing, Charlotte, my area, being another big thing. And to see those people get run off with what WCW turned into, it can happen. And in a way, I guess, in some of those people that are complaining about this that are our age, I mean, it's like that same cycle going in a row, and we'll have to see who gets growing, who's growing from this. Seems like the independents are doing a lot more to kind of, establish new fans than WWE is, but I guess we'll have to see.
I should mention, this person says, it's funny how the same people who complained about Crown Jewel are still watching and paying for the WWE Network. I've seen YouTube reviewers who have done this. Well, Laura, yesterday on Twitter, loyal listener Laura, who is hardest of the hardcore. I don't know if she's watching Raw and SmackDown, but she noted, and this is absolutely true, when you give up, you don't complain about it. You just quit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there were 37,000 people that just quit. They're done. I mean, they may not have even tweeted one thing about it. They may not have said one thing on a message board. They may not have called one radio show. They were just WWE fans, and they were disgusted by Crown Jewel, and they just quit, and they're done.
And you can't look, and you cannot dismiss people that have talked about it or are upset about it, because it is such a polarizing issue. I mean, for some people, it is a very deep and harsh issue for whatever reason that they hold those beliefs. So to mock those people or to say, everybody's talking about it, but nobody does anything, it's like, that doesn't mean that person that's putting that out there and putting their opinion out there, they're just choosing to do it. Whereas other people just, when they're done, they just click it off and they are done.
This person here says, I consider myself a hardcore fan. I stopped watching weekly about 3 months ago. I just rely on you and Dave to suffer through it and see what you guys think about it. I will catch the pay-per-views. Yes, this is a hardest of the hardcore who's not watching Raw and SmackDown. I mean, think about this. You know how hardcore you had to be to watch Nitro at the end? I'm watching the retro show right now. It is so beyond atrocious. And they had, I think it was like 2.5 million people watching them till the absolute bitter end. It doesn't get any hardcore than that. But you know what? When that show went off the air, those hardest of the absolute hardcore wrestling fans who were still watching WCW at the end, they quit. They didn't go to Raw. Because, in fact, you can run off the hardest of the hardcore. They can give up. And those WCW fans, when it went off the air, they just gave up. They were no longer wrestling fans. They moved on to something else in their lives. You can run off the hardest of the hardcore. There are no casuals right now. Like, I can't say none, but very, very few.
probably as low a number now. Well, as low a number now as there's ever been. That's provable. But so and that's why I can't get upset about sometimes WWE fans that are tunnel vision WWE fans, because there were WCW fans that's what they watched, and they were watching Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo and going, well, you know what? If Bischoff buys this thing or whatever excuses they were making at the end, they were there, and then they just never turned the dial, and the numbers and the decline showed that.
Person says, do the talent receive any royalties for the network? No, they do not.
Been a big bone of contention for some people, some older wrestlers.
Person says, Brian, do you think there's even a slight chance Kenny Omega might still come to WWE? No, I don't.
No, stop it.
I think it's done. Person says, I'm reading that New Japan took Cody and the Bucks off the roster page, but not Jericho and Omega. Maybe Omega gets a non-exclusive contract. Well, Jericho has a non-exclusive contract. Omega, I guess we'll see. I expect him there tonight. Don't know what kind of contract he's going to or has signed, but we'll let you know about it tomorrow. Back in a moment with the Doctor of Lucha, Wrestling Observer Live. Back in the show, Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. Mike Sempervive, also of WrestlingObserver.com. The Doctor of Lucha is joining us here today. A lot to get into. Dr. Luch, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, guys. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. We got two big things to talk about here today. We're going to start with the news, and that is that AAA off Televisa, looking to be permanent now, and moving, announced today, to TV Azteca. Tell us about this story.
Well, to make a long story short, which is not my forte, but I'll try and do that, they were on Televisa for their very first show that was taped on May of 1992, and the contract that they had ran out the end of the year. I think they had one show in January, but generally speaking, the contract ran out, and they could not come to terms as to who would pay who for the rights. So AAA thanked Televisa very publicly and very much, negotiated with Azteca, and has found a slot on Azteca that I believe it's just come out, and I've read it like once, but I think it's Friday at 4:30 Central Time in the afternoon for 2 hours on Azteca 7, which is the larger of the two Azteca channels in Mexico. And that's exposure that it's not Televisa level exposure. I mean, that's kind of like the difference in exposure between a CW or a WB network or any my UPN network or anything from those old kind of mid-range networks as opposed to network TV. Televisa was very, very dominant, but it'll be interesting to me. The biggest question I have is how much Televisa or how much Azteca is going to be concerned if they're just airing matches that the hardcore fans will have already seen live on Twitch or will have already seen on YouTube. I wonder if they're getting separate and or different or just different TV tapings or more tapings or just a rehash of the Twitch.
How big a change are we talking here? Like if you could look at like the U.S. networks and describe to somebody who doesn't know anything about Televisa and TV Azteca, what are we talking about here, and how do you think this is going to affect the company, if at all?
Azteca is Channel 7, so it's like an over-the-air network. But there are only two. There's not like ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS. There's not like four or five broadcast national networks in Mexico. There are really two. Televisa, which has 4 channels, and Azteca, which has 2. And Azteca is a far second to Televisa in its overall market share. Next time I come on, I can have more specific numbers, but I mean, it's Televisa is a very dominant force in the marketplace. However, it's not, I'll have to give some thought at this 4:30 on Friday slot. I know people have ways of time shifting, and almost anybody who has a TV these days, even in a country that's not too well off economically, is going to be able to time shift their watching if they really want to see it. It's an odd slot, but it's there.
What was the Televisa slot?
It's pretty good. But to be honest, I've forgotten. They were on Canal 9, and the last I remember it was like Saturday afternoons. But
so this could potentially be a better slot, just on a weaker network.
Yeah, in Las Vegas, we lost a whole bunch of Spanish language fees. I mean, they raised the rates on everything, including like El Rey Network, about 3.5 months ago, 4 months ago. And boy, did Cox pay for that. They've lost just a ton of Hispanic viewership here in Vegas, but that's another story.
Steve,
it could be. It could be. Oh, wait, is this Mike?
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask you. I mean, could this be any benefit in America? I mean, they're in a poor position in Mexico, Azteca is, but they're even worse in some ways here because of Univision, Telemundo, Estrella, and Unimas, as well as Telefutura, all having more eyeballs on them than Azteca does. Could this actually, for American fans, be any sort of benefit with the show being broadcast on Azteca America, which is doing its best to at least try to be hooked up and put on digital sub-channels all across the country?
I think it could. Azteca's going to have to promote it and tell people when the shows are. I don't know if it's going to air at exactly the same time, if it's going to be just a straight retransmission, or if they're going to give it a different time slot in the U.S. It's like, is this a market that AAA wants to run? Do they really think they have a way to run an American market off this? They had Televisa for all those years, and they didn't really have anything but lip service towards running America. They never really got things going, and I'm not sure that even with being able to see it in America on Azteca America, that a lot of fans are going to be able to watch it on house shows. I mean, this is a whole topic for another day, but their roster's pretty thin right now. If they don't keep Phoenix and Pentagon on the roster, I mean, they're struggling. So they got to create some new stars, and there's people like Hijo del Vikingo and the youngest Villano are not long and are likely to be scooped up in the American Indie bidding wars. So they've got, even if they get a strong push from Azteca America, they've got some roster work to do.
Steve, just one last thing here on this. When it comes to like TV, people have wondered, in America, where could Impact go and where could different places that might be interested or have aired wrestling before. But when it comes to like Latin American sports and Multimedios and some of those networks and channels in Mexico, I mean, were they ever an option? Are they ever an option? Or is it not even worth going to a station that small or a unit that small?
It's really funny. We've discussed this from time to time over the years. The American branches of the Spanish language network shows have not been fans of Lucha Libre. I mean, Univision had the first year of Lucha Underground, which was, I thought, had great ratings. I mean, good audience for them, and they didn't even bother to sign up again for seasons 2, 3, or 4. So I'm just not convinced that folks in the American programming areas for that Spanish language market are all.
I don't know. I think Latin American sports playing like Puerto Rican like club basketball and like I don't know how much Dominican baseball one can watch, but like you'd figure there might be an option there that's more than just IWRG.
You should get Cuban baseball. Well, yes, but what they're going to be looking for is somebody to pay for the programming. If they're relatively strong enough in the shows they have, they'll either have somebody to pay for the slot or have a sponsor for the slot that will cover the cost of it. And the American programming, the American Spanish language programming departments won't have to pay for anything. So it's a financial transaction.
All right, we got two other things we got to talk about here. First off, the class action lawsuit against Lucha Underground to get out of these contracts. I mean, no talk whatsoever of another season. I mean, is this the end of Lucha Underground?
Well, there's a talk of another season. Just neither side is budging, and I don't expect either one will ever budge on putting up and deciding the money for it. I mean, El Rey needs the programming, so you presume they want it, but the production company just doesn't look like it's going to put up the funds for it. And I think, as we have discussed in the past and discussed when Alberto Del Rio was trying to get out of his WWE contract, if you have somebody in a contract for employment and you just don't use them for a while, in the U.S., I don't think courts are very, very friendly at all towards the companies. They're much more like you're not using them, you're not paying them. That's the end of that. He can go and make a living for himself. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Lucha Underground just within a week or two announce one way or the other if they're coming back or not coming back, and they'll put all the financial costs together of defending or not defending these suits. that I highly think that the wrestlers will succeed on.
All right, the main reason we were going to get you on for all of this other news was the anniversary of the death of El Santo, and we were talking about this a couple of days ago. When I was younger, I mean, Santo was always listed in like the top 10 most influential Mexicans in history. In 2019, would he still be on that list, top 10?
Yes. Oh, yes, he'd be first.
First?
He would still be first.
Wow.
In worldwide and in Mexico, are two different things. Within Mexico is I forget who the first person to say this to me was. Maybe Ernesto Campo said about 12 years ago. If you walk down the street and ask people the name of Luchador, the name that most people would come back with is El Santo, and he's been dead since 1984, February of 1984. He had a cultural cross. He was just way famous for both the little comic book that birthed a mainstream appeal for him. That then the movies went ahead and made him a superhero in the Mexican B movies of the 50s and 60s. He was way more well known than a Hulk Hogan or an Austin. A Rock would be a very good comparison. But even more so because...
Well, even like The Rock, I mean, no one's going to do a list of the top 10 most influential Americans, and Rock will be number one. Like, I knew Santo was on the list, but like number one?
Yeah, oh yeah. He is. He is his matches and his gates for the 50s and 60s, even when he was a heel until about 63 when he turned on Benny Gallant. And then for the next about 7 years were way more. It was Dusty Rhodes in Florida. It was like just having him on the card was just way more a gate than anybody else in Mexico could do. And he started the Santo gimmick in 41 and wrestled through 82. So I mean, he kept up this gimmick for 40 years. And people operate on perception of reality rather than reality. And he never got old, even though he was slow and had a heart attack in the ring and could barely move towards the end. People they loved the concept. He was part of their culture growing up, and that was considered a golden age of Mexican cinema, and he was one of the 2 or 3 leading box office draws.
Wow. So we're not even talking about Mexican wrestlers. We're talking about Mexican people.
Yeah, Mexican people overall. I mean, it's tough to say because, I mean, there's the Pedro Infantes of the world. There are some singers that are ahead of that, but I mean, Santo is really well known. He was not number one at the box office during the peak of his career, but he was awfully close. And he had a unique gimmick. I mean, he was the first wrestler in Mexico. Lucha started in 33 and 41. He was the first one to wear a color other than black. And the man in the silver mask, just that gimmick, just wearing the silver. Even though the Saint was a heel, was just nuts. It really increased the business to where by the 60s and 70s, it was as booming a territory as anywhere in the world.
And I think most people know the story, but if you don't, like shortly before his death, he was on a show, and he voluntarily just pulled his mask up and showed the world his face.
Yeah, up to his eyebrows, he did. And Blue Demon was his best friend, but also his biggest career rival, was having an apoplexy in the other chair in the same studio. But there is a lot of nobody knows for sure. He never said so specifically, but there are a lot of people who said that he had kind of given little hints here and there that he was feeling really poorly, and that he not so much that he thought he was dying, but he thought that he could be dying.
And so he made the decision at the very end.
It was the very end. I mean, this was like January, I think, 17th of 84, and he died February 5th of 84. I mean, as usual, be careful with checking my records, but that's pretty close.
Wow. And buried in his mask.
This was the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Buried in his mask.
As a matter of fact, I think he had done it once again, either a day or two later, a day or two earlier, on a smaller show that wasn't on Televisa. But this was like hosted by the Mike Wallace of Televisa at that time.
All right, well, stand by. We'll be back in a moment with more Wrestling Observer Live. We only got a moment here, but Dr. Lucha and I were talking during the break, and I do remember when I was younger, the stories of all of the luchadors going around had never taken their masks off. And I'd kind of forgotten about it because I go to indie shows all the time now, and I'm backstage, and there's all of the biggest names in independent wrestling, the biggest luchadors, just walking around no masks on. Like it's nothing. And that's certainly absolutely not the way that it used to be.
No, not at all. Santo never took off his mask. Neil Mascaris was famous for that, for people shaking their head at seeing him go into the shower and then come out of the shower with his mask on, and Santo was even more so. He guarded that thing like it was his livelihood, which it was.
They'd be out there with rats wearing their masks.
Yes, well, that's true, but still, he was very, very serious about it. He had lucked upon something that made him a fortune, and he was not going to fiddle with it.
What do we got coming up in the Figure 4 Weekly this week?
Well, last week was Block A. Last week's issue covered Block A of the CMLL Universal Tournament. This week, there's so much other stuff going on. I was going to do Block B, and I'll probably throw in a summary of it. But, I mean, there's a lot of news. And the Azteca stuff and the Lucha Underground contract stuff is still breaking. So by the time I finish it up in a couple of days and stuff like that, there may be quite some new developments.
All right, you can check out the Figure 4 Weekly, everybody, and the Wrestling Observer newsletter with your subscription to WrestlingObserver.com. We got tons of back issues of Figure 4 Weekly with Steve's columns, tons of shows with Dr. Lucha. Probably, God, it's got to be close to like 200-300 shows in the archives with Dr. Lucha, maybe even more, all dating back to 2005.
You want him to buy the show, not buy it.
Oh, get out of here. Almost 10,000 shows in the archives, everybody. Hundreds and thousands of observers and Figure 4 Weeklies, all this great stuff. You can also check out video.f4wonline.com for more. Steve's on here every week, and I want to wish you the best, Steve. And, of course, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again tomorrow with more. Thanks, Mike, as always. Callers and listeners, everybody in the studio. We'll talk to you again next time. Wrestling Observer Live. How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on Wrestling Observer Live. We are here every day, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific 3 Eastern, Sundays 3 Pacific 6 Eastern. Got a lot to get into today, and a lot of it involves All Elite Wrestling. They had their Double or Nothing press conference on Thursday night in Las Vegas, and a lot of news coming out of that. We have new signees, including, yes, it's official, Kenny Omega is now part of All Elite Wrestling in a wrestling and an executive role. The ticket on sale date for the second All In, Double or Nothing, was announced, and the big news coming out of this, which should not be understated, is there were 12,000 requests for the pre-sale code. Now, the building is going to be set up for 14,000. And so when you hear 12,000 pre-sale requests, 14,000 in the building, one would think, well, that's going to sell out fairly quickly. Well, when you think about pre-sale codes, how many people are going to this show by themselves? If you presume that most people are going to go with a friend, and many people probably requested blocks of 4, I mean, the requests, the pre-sale requests, the demand for the show is ridiculous. So it's probably going to sell out immediately, and that'll be the end of that. So if you want to get a ticket to Double or Nothing, we'll give you the information about when tickets go on sale and when you can grab yours, and I guess do the best you can because they're going to go quick. So we'll talk about that here today. Got a lot of news on the All Elite roster. We got news on the press conference last night, who beat up who. We got a card for the show. And, of course, some WWE news as well. The Superstar shakeup is official. We'll tell you about that and what they're going to be doing there. ROH, the day before the G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden, there's going to be a fan event in New York City. The G1 Supercard Festival of Honor at the Hulu Theater. We can talk about that more. Mike Sempervive not joining us here today, so I'm going to take a lot of phone calls and text messages. It's just me the whole hour. So if you want to join us, give you the numbers after the break. Back in a moment, Wrestling Observer Live. Bryan Alvarez here, Wrestling Observer Live. No Mike Sempervive here today. So if you'd like to join us on the show, the phone number, 844-411-5411. That is toll-free, 844-411-5411. Text messages, 425-780-7566. Open lines today. We'll have a lot to talk about since I'm solo today. And a lot of it going to be revolving around All Elite Wrestling since they had their press conference yesterday. and a lot of news coming out of that. Let's start with this. During the press conference Thursday night in Vegas, Cody announced when tickets will officially go on sale for the group's second pay-per-view event. Registration is now open for a pre-sale that will begin on Monday, February 11th at 3 o'clock p.m. That's this Monday. That's noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. Right when our show starts, by the way. Public on sale Wednesday, February 13th at noon Eastern at 9 a.m. Pacific. Prices were not announced. Now, here's the thing, everyone. 12,000 requests for the pre-sale code. That's of yesterday, by the way, so the number may be bigger now, which means that there is a chance that this is never going to go on sale to the public. It's going to sell out Monday morning instantly, and that will be the end of that. So I guess things could change, but 12,000 requests, as I noted in the opening segment, if you presume most people want 2 tickets, I mean, that's 24,000 right there. And for the people that want 4 tickets, I mean, you're looking at anywhere from 24 to 60,000 ticket requests for this show. And the building is set up for 14,000. So these tickets are going to be gone immediately. You can register on AEW's website to get a unique code from now through February 10th at 10 p.m. Eastern. Unique codes are being sent on February 11th. Show is scheduled for Saturday, May 25th at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Officially announced at the presser, Hangman Page versus Pac, with matches involving the Young Bucks, Cody, SCU, and more expected to be announced shortly. The group's first pay-per-view event, All In, sold out in just over 30 minutes at the Sears Center in Chicago. That venue held 10,000. MGM expected to be scaled for around 14,000. Now, if you went to All In, or if you remember All In, we didn't know anything about it. We knew there was going to be an All In. We didn't know how many tickets were going to be sold. We didn't know really who was going to be on the card. And everybody, pretty much nothing but rave reviews for the show. And so people very, very excited for the second show. And perhaps it's not even perhaps, they probably could have run a much larger building, but you don't know that going in. And so they chose a 14,000 seat building, and it appears it's going to be sold out very, very quickly. After weeks of speculation and teases about the future, the expected outcome was confirmed tonight as Kenny Omega appeared at All Elite Wrestling's ticket announcement party. He announced he is now a full-time member of the AEW roster. A graphic that was shown on the screen identified Omega as an executive vice president of AEW, which is a role that Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks also have with the company. Omega said he didn't put pen to paper on signing with AEW until yesterday morning. As Omega was talking about AEW changing the pro wrestling world, he was interrupted by Chris Jericho. Omega and Jericho had a pull-apart brawl, with the Angle seemingly setting up a match between the two for Double or Nothing. He lost the IWGP Heavyweight title to Hiroshi Tanahashi, Wrestle Kingdom 13, and then did an interview with Tokyo Sports announcing that he was leaving New Japan, and his contract expired at the end of January. He had been given offers by, I presume, everywhere. I know WWE made him a very large offer, and he turned that down, and he is now with All Elite Wrestling. So that's the initial story right there. We'll get into more of this here in just a moment, but let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hi, Brian. How are you?
What's up?
Everything and anything, apparently. So my question is actually not about AEW right now, but I was kind of wondering, where do you think they're going to go with the world title picture at Mania for Smackdown? I mean, I'm guessing Daniel Bryan holds it all the way till then, but I don't even know who his opponent would be. The only one I can think of is maybe they try to do like a mini Tanahashi thing with Ray, and then or unless they turn Andrade, but that seems like a really big spot to put him in this early if they're going to just turn him within a month.
Well, I think that here's what I think it's going to be, and I have absolutely no idea. This is purely speculation. I think that they're going to either do some sort of big stipulation match with Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, or they're going to do a Daniel Bryan Samoa Joe match, or they're going to do Bryan versus AJ versus Joe. Because Joe was all over that show on Tuesday, choking people out, and obviously part of this is to build towards the Elimination Chamber match, but, I mean, it was Joe, and they haven't done a big Joe-Daniel Bryan match. You know the match would be awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not going to be headlining the show, so you may as well put a great match on there.
Yeah, I like that train of thought. And if they turn Joe and they did it right, which again is a very big if, but like he'd get over like gangbusters. I mean, especially like that dude's the best promo in the company. I think he's better than anybody else. The only guy I think even compares is Heyman probably, and I guess Becky, but Becky's kind of a different kind of promo. But I think he would be. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I like that a lot, actually.
I like Becky's promos, but Joe is a way better promo than Becky right now. And probably better than everybody, like you said, except Paul Heyman. I can't even think of anybody close in WWE right now. He's great. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's going on?
Hey, Brian, this is Bruce in Huntsville.
What's up, Bruce?
After yesterday's rally, I'm feeling just a little bit uneasy, more than I was before, about AEW. And
why is that?
I have no doubt that they'll do. Well, I have no doubt that they'll do really good business, especially after bringing Omega on board. But it's just, it doesn't really appeal to me that they're making everybody, like, Kenny is he's an amazing professional wrestler, but I don't think he knows enough about office workings to be an executive vice president. It's like having Jim Ross as your first world champion.
Well, actually, it's completely different. I mean, Jim Ross isn't a wrestler, number one. And number two, the executive vice president title, I mean, that title is held by Kenny, the Young Bucks, and Cody. And it doesn't, I mean, I don't know what it means. There's an interview with Kenny Omega that's going to be going up on our website very soon. Maybe he can explain it more. But, I mean, to me, it's more like the four kind of founding members of this whole thing are getting executive positions in the company. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, like, it's going to live and die based on Kenny. I mean, he's got a role, he's got a title. But I would presume that he's mostly going to be talent. I mean, the Young Bucks are mostly going to be talent. They're out there scouting tag teams. Cody's mostly going to be talent. He's scouting other singles wrestlers. I don't know what Kenny's role really is going to be, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, Kenny and the Young Bucks and Cody, I mean, they've all had great ideas. One thing that people need to realize is, like, a lot of this stuff, not a lot of this stuff, because, I mean, obviously, Delirious does the majority of the booking in Ring of Honor, but a lot of the ideas that you saw in Ring of Honor with Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, it did very well. I mean, they had heavy input into those angles. So, we don't know what this is. I mean, you could be right, but I don't think the comparison to Jim Ross is a good comparison. Usually you don't want office people also being involved in the booking or the involved in the ring, but I don't know how much booking Kenny Omega is going to do on his own. I think it's going to be kind of like a group thing, and obviously they want this to succeed. They're going to try to get everybody over. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, you could be right, but I think it's more like just a title than anything else. But like I said, there's a Kenny Omega interview going up on the website soon. I think he's going to be on this show at some point down the road as well, and we can talk to him about that. To the phones, you're on the air. What's up?
Hey, Brian, it's Shane from Chicago.
What's up?
So I watched the press conference last night, and I don't know if it was just me, but I was almost bored during it, and also the sound issues were just driving me insane. And I know they said they learned from their past mistakes, but I just wanted to get your take on all those sound issues and whether or not maybe it was just me being bored in it.
Well, I heard that people were bored during the first one. I know that there were people bored during the second one, and they're just getting started. I mean, obviously, they've got a long way to go. They're not WWE in terms of production. But, I mean, the key to me is this. On Monday, we're going to find out how much this bothered everybody. Like, if this thing sells out in 10 minutes, 30 minutes, which I actually expect it to do, I mean, it clearly wasn't a big issue to a lot of people. Stand by. I'll pick this up after the break. We got to head to a break. Back in a moment, Observer Live. Well, I'm going to start with something here that probably will make people mad, but it's just the reality, and it's the easiest thing that I can explain or use to explain this to everybody. So, obviously, WWE is fine. AEW is not threatening WWE in any way. They're a billion-dollar company. They're going to be making billions over the next several years. They got a 5-year, not a 3-year. I think I said 3 years. So it's a 5-year deal for Raw and SmackDown. $1 billion. I mean, they're doing all right. So, $2.3 billion, actually. Anyway, point of this is, if you love what WWE is doing, and you think it's awesome, but they're selling 3,000 tickets to a SmackDown taping, it's not as awesome as everybody thinks it is. Like in the Attitude Era, they were doing 12,000 people per Raw and SmackDown tape. 12,000 people. Now SmackDown's drawing 3, and Raw's doing 5 or 6. Okay, that was this past week. So, I mean, things are fine, but things are not great. All right? So if you watch the All Elite press conference and you think it's boring, production's terrible, it's ghetto. I mean, you're absolutely entitled to your opinion, and a lot of people have stated that. But if they're getting 12,000 requests for pre-sale tickets and they sell that thing out immediately, I mean, it's fine. That means that whatever they're doing, people are willing to overlook that because they want something different. That's the whole key to me to All Elite Wrestling. People want something different. They don't like a lot of things that WWE is doing. They want different wrestlers. They want a different style. They want a different kind of match. And that's what they're getting with All Elite Wrestling, and that's why it's doing the way that it's doing right now. Now, over the long haul, I have no idea. I don't know what the situation was. They had no TV announcement yesterday. None. Now, allegedly, they're dealing with 2 very, very strong stations. And I'm sure that when a deal is signed, we'll all hear about it. If it's very, very strong TV, and between now and the end of the year, they can kick off TV and do decent numbers, and then parlay that into touring and more big shows, then it will survive and it may thrive. But we don't know yet. All I know is what I know right now, and that is the ticket sales for this next event look like they're going to be very, very strong. So I guess that guy's gone. So that's the story. That's all I know right now. I don't think it's obviously they'd love for things to be better, but you're not going to start right out of the gate with WWE production. Nobody can. Everybody's trying to do the best they can. I mean, for years, I heard people complaining about Ring of Honor production and talking about how, the Ring of Honor production is horrible. Impact looks better. Well, at the end of the day, Impact sunk and sunk and sunk, and Ring of Honor had their best year ever last year. And obviously, the reason they had their best year ever last year was not because production tripled, although production was significantly better last year. The reason that Ring of Honor had their best year ever was they were presenting a product that people wanted to pay to see. I mean, you didn't hear a lot of people talking about Ring of Honor TV. I mean, I never hear people talking about Ring of Honor TV. But Ring of Honor would put on shows with wrestlers and matchups that people wanted to see, and people went to the shows and they bought those tickets. They sold out in Madison Square Garden immediately. They didn't even announce any wrestlers. There were presumptions about who would be on that show, and it sold out immediately. And that's, at the end of the day, what this is all about. Can you put on shows that people want to pay to see? However you're going to do it. Like I hear people, there's a thread on our board right now about how much people don't like being the Elite. They think it's low rent, and they don't think it's funny. I mean, obviously, there's a quarter million people that love it. And whatever you think about it, at the end of the day, it's a business. And if they sell tickets and if they make money, then things are fine. And if they don't, then things aren't fine. That's the end of the story. Forget social media, YouTube, and everything like that. It's all about the money. To the phone, John the Air, what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? Tim in Miami. Bryan, real quick on your last point there, I actually like a sort of less sparkly production. You know, it makes it feel more old school. I think WWE goes overboard with all the LED boards.
They do.
Laser lights and everything.
A lot of people like that. Crazy. A lot of people want it to feel more real and organic. Like some people were brought up on WWE, and to them, like, if it's not a well-lit arena and the lighting and the LED boards and the overproduced, then it's not wrestling to them. But for a lot of fans, they're sick of that, and they want something different. And they're willing to put up with some audio issues, some video issues, because it's something that feels more real to them.
Yeah, and my question, the reason I called was a few weeks ago when Jericho was drunk tweeting, and he said, well, we're only interested in 3 or 4 WWE guys. I'm curious your guys' take on this, but to me, if I'm only interested in 3 or 4, it's not guys who've been on top. To me, it's guys like Cesaro and Rusev, who at one point or another, fans have really been behind, but ran up against Vince's kind of glass ceiling. And I think that's a smart thing, because not only might that draw the 2.5 million people who are watching Raw now, but the 2 to 2.5 million people who've tuned out over the last 5 years because the guys they wanted to see opportunities didn't get opportunities.
I don't know who they're interested in, but I mean, here's the thing with the Young Bucks and Cody and Kenny Omega and the Elite, all of these guys, and Jericho. If you look at how many shirts they sold at Hot Topic, almost 500,000 shirts at Hot Topic. And the Bullet Club and the Bucks and Cody and Marty Scurll, Kenny Omega, none of them were ever main roster WWE stars. So, I don't know. I don't even think the Young Bucks have watched WWE in a decade. I don't think that Kenny Omega is regularly watching WWE. I think that Cody does. I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that he watches the big shows. And Cody's really the only one involved that has been like a WWE main roster guy. But they have been very, very successful. They sold out All In. They sold 500,000 shirts at Hot Topic. They helped draw big crowds for Ring of Honor and New Japan. So a lot of wrestling companies, like Impact, for example, I mean, Impact was always looking to grab somebody that was off WWE TV. Because in their mind, if we can get somebody off WWE TV that's been like a big-time star to wrestling fans, it will help our company. And in some cases, like Kurt Angle's a good example, it really did help TNA. And in other cases, there were guys that didn't mean a thing for Impact. Now, the difference here is all of these individuals that are in management positions with the company, Cody, the Bucks, Omega, they have all seen a great deal of success getting themselves over and getting other indie guys over and getting over guys who were never big stars in WWE. So I'm sure they'd love to have AJ Styles. I'm sure they'd love to have Daniel Bryan. I'm sure there are top stars they'd love to have. But what they're looking for is individuals that they feel are very, very talented and can have great matches, and that they feel that if we put this machine behind them, they can become big stars. And to them, you don't have to have been a WWE main eventer. Look at Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega was under WWE contract. He was in developmental, and he got cut. And now, outside of WWE, he is the biggest star in this business. So to them, they don't need a big name. I want to go over the roster here. This is the other thing. Somebody put this on the board. This is what is believed to be the full roster for All Elite Wrestling right now. And obviously more will be added. For male wrestlers, we got Cody Rhodes, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, Adam Page, Chris Daniels, Kazarian, Scorpio Sky, Pentagon Jr., Phoenix, MJF, Pac, Trent Beretta, Chuck Taylor, Jimmy Havoc, Sammy Guevara, Joey Janela, Jungle Boy, Sonny Kiss, and Shima. And obviously there's others that are working with Shima and more that I'm sure will be coming in. That's a good roster. And you can run great shows with that roster. How many more do you need? I mean, it's great to have more, but they're not even running house shows right now. They don't have TV right now. Right now, they are a big show company. So I'm not sure how many more WWE, ex-WWE stars they would even need. Now, once they get TV, it's another story entirely. Females, I got Brandi Rhodes, Britt Baker, Penelope Ford, Aja Kong, Yuka Sakazaki, Kylie Ray, and Nyla Rose. And there will be others to come there as well. So they've got a fine roster. They've got a good roster. They can run great shows with that roster. And I don't think you necessarily need like a bunch of big-name WWE stars to make this a viable roster. I think you've got a viable roster. If somebody comes available and they think they're talented, then I'm sure they'll be added to this roster. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi, it's Mike from Toronto.
What's up, Mike?
Yeah, I just want to say I watched the press conference last night. I thought it was it was a press conference. It wasn't super exciting. And the roster looks great. I'd like to see what they do. I know a lot of people want to, crap all over it really early, but, I'd say just let's see what they do. Give it a year maybe, and then we can all crap on whatever they've done in a year. But the one egregious mistake I thought they made last night was no one went in the pool.
Oh,
I think that's...
what were they thinking?
That's Bush League.
Chris Jericho, of all people, should have known better. Go in the damn pool.
Exactly. One person. But other than that, I'm excited what they're going to do with it. Who knows what it'll be, but let's just see what goes on.
Well, I got to say that I love pool spots, but the idea behind the All-In press conference was it's like a UFC press conference. And if you've ever watched a UFC press conference, some of them are disasters. But they still sell tickets and pay-per-views. Because production aside, WWE is heavy into production. But at the end of the day, production aside, can you create rivalries that people want to see? That's it. And that was the idea behind the All-In press conference. It's supposed to be like a UFC press conference. And nobody has ever taken a bump into a pool on a UFC show. So they're trying to avoid being completely wacky. I know that sounds funny if you've seen Being the Elite, but I think that's why nobody went to the pool. Back in a moment. Observer Live. All right, we got an email here. Text message, actually. If you want to give us a call, by the way, 844-411-5411 is the phone number toll-free, 844-411-5411. Text message is 425-780-7566. This texter here said, the indie stars will sell tickets, but they need a big-time WWE star to draw television ratings. Maybe. I want to make something very clear to everybody here that when you're talking about business, there are a lot of rules that you hear over the years that, in a lot of cases, I mean, it's true, okay? But in other cases, sometimes you can break the rules and be a success. There's never, a rule that's never going to change. The world changes, wrestling fandom changes, okay? So, yes, there was a time, those old WWE stars, those old WWF stars from the 80s, when they showed up on Nitro, that did, in fact, draw ratings. And people tuned in to see those guys that they grew up with. And there was a generation of fans, little kids in the 80s. And they quit watching wrestling in the mid-90s because it sucked, the early 90s. And then Nitro popped up, and there's Hogan, Savage, all of these guys that they grew up watching. And they started watching again when they were teens. And that led to the Attitude Era. So, yes, that has happened in the past, okay? That was 25 years ago that happened. So, what can we do but look at what's happened of late? And what's happened of late is, let's take, for example, NXT. NXT is the most watched show on the WWE Network. And granted, you got to be a WWE fan to get the network. But of all of the shows on the network, the NXT television show is the most watched weekly television show. Obviously, the pay-per-views do better. But NXT does very, very well. The NXT TakeOver shows, NXT TakeOver outdrew Raw and Smackdown over the Royal Rumble weekend. It sold more tickets than Raw and Smackdown. There were no big WWE stars on that show. It was all big indie names. The New Japan on Access show. Access is a very, very small station, and they don't get traditional ratings, so you can't look at the ratings, but according to Access TV, it is doing extremely well. New Japan, it's a taped show of old matches featuring no former WWE superstars, and it does great. And I find it hard to believe that a show can have a demand for 60,000 tickets or whatever, and the idea is if you put it on TV and there are no WWE stars, nobody's going to watch the show. I mean, the All-In WGN airing, it didn't do tremendous numbers, but it did well. It did over 100,000 viewers on WGN, and there were no former WWE stars on that show. So it's 2019 now, and the rules of wrestling that people have gone by for the past 100 years or whatever, sometimes there are things that are going to be, what's the word? There will never be a day where if you get people interested in two people fighting, they're not going to buy a ticket for it. Some things will never change, okay? But some things do change. And we'll find out if they can draw without a WWE star. And, I mean, I have no idea why they would be able to sell live event tickets and sell out buildings, but not be able to draw eyeballs on TV without WWE stars. But we'll see. Maybe you're right. And Chris Jericho was a big-time WWE star. So they have one of those. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up?
Hey, Brian, this is Joe from Missouri.
What's up?
So I'm one of these guys you were talking about yesterday, one of these hardcores that's just completely divested themselves from WWE.
Yes, you exist.
And so I'm going to say that, number one, there's not any stars on WWE, really. And number two, when I think of stars, I do think of guys from New Japan.
You think of guys that are stars and women who are stars. I mean, this presumption that you must need a WWE star to draw TV ratings. Who is that star? I mean, no individual is moving ratings for WWE. So why would they necessarily draw ratings for somebody else? I mean, they could. The Revival could draw ratings for somebody else if they're used right. I mean, what's going to draw ratings is your ability to create stars. And if All Elite Wrestling can create stars with a Sammy Guevara, then that's more valuable than bringing in somebody from WWE, the company that WWE itself can make a star.
Well, you know who I would completely watch any show for? Ishii.
Yes. He's a star. But hey, you're a hardcore. It's about making stars for the masses. And it is true. AEW is untested to a degree in making stars for the masses. But I mean, 400,000, 500,000 shirts at Hot Topic? I mean, that sounds to me like you've made somewhat of a star to the masses.
I think if they can get a good TV deal, I mean, they can make stars, which is something that WWE does not do.
And that's what this business is all about, is making stars. And granted, I want to thank you very much for the call. All this is, it's an unknown. We have no idea if they can get, let's say that they get TBS, okay? Very, very strong station. We don't know if they can make stars for the masses, okay? But we do know that they've made huge stars among those that do have access to what they do. And so to say that it's not going to happen, you can't say that. You can't say it will happen, but we have no way of knowing until such a thing actually occurs. And there's no evidence to say that they're unable to make stars, because they've done a very good job making stars with the platforms that they currently have available. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up?
Hey, it's Derek from New Jersey. How are you?
What's going on?
Not too much. I guess dovetail on that point, I think for certain networks you might need, I mean, look, if you put it back on, some far-flung cable channel, you might need, a big flashy star. But depending on where they land, the channel could actually, make the star, so to speak. It's reckless speculation, but I think it's, not completely reckless. It's partially well-informed. But given what the Bucks have said about wanting TV, wanting streaming, something like, it might sound crazy, but the Cons are sports people, so it might sound crazy, but something like ESPN with plenty of channels, plenty of streaming options could be, look, I'd be shocked to find out that ESPN was not one of the two that they're talking to now for a lot of different reasons. But I think, depending on the eventual landing spot that these guys go to, the channel, I mean, look, you put it on something like ESPN, people are going to listen no matter what, or watch no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the companies right now are on stations that that are available in 50 million homes or fewer. And, I mean, I don't get beIN Sports. I don't get Access TV right now. I've got YouTube TV. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that I can't watch on television. I can't watch WOW. I mean, WOW doesn't even offer a stream a week later. I mean, there's literally no way for me to watch WOW. So if you're on a station like that, El Rey, it's another one. I mean, El Rey, Lucha Underground was the highest rated thing on El Rey, but, I mean, it's El Rey, and it didn't just have the viewership. If they can get a station that's in 80, 90, 100 million homes, I mean, you're looking at something where if they can get guys over, they can be a big success. And again, it's all about getting guys and women over. And we'll see if they're able to do that. They have a great track record among their audience right now, and the people that follow them on social media and the people that go to indie shows, they have a great track record for creating stars right now. And it's untested whether they can do that on the big stage, but there's no evidence that they can't. Let's go to the phones. You're on the air. What's up? Hello, my friend. Going once. Going twice. History. I always wonder why that happens. All right, let's do some of the text messages here. I'm going to shut down the phones, actually. We've got a lot of text messages here. Are you aware of the popularity of AEW demographically? If so, can you expound on it? No, I'm not. I only know that hardcore fans, similar to what subscribe to our website, I mean, based on feedback that we get. So I would say 18 to 49-year-old males is the main demographic they have right now. But I don't know anything beyond that. This person here says, your typical wrestling fan, I'm over WWE, it sucks. It's not as good as it used to be. I wish something else would come along. Something new comes along. The acting sucks. The production not as good as WWE's. There's not as many people in the crowd as WWE. Well, does that make you not want to watch it? That's the big question. Does that make the vast majority of people not want to watch it? I mean, if that ends up being a hindrance to business, then it's a hindrance to business. If it ends up not being a hindrance to business, then it's not. That's the bottom line. Person says, I think the Jim Ross comparison works since Omega is not an office talent yet he is an executive title. Ross is historically a great office asset, but he has no business being in the ring as world champ. Jim Ross is not a wrestler. How is this a comparison? Jim Ross is not a wrestler. I don't understand the comparison here. This person says, Randy is going to win at the Chamber and face John Cena for the title at Mania. God, I hope not. I remember like a decade ago, they promised they were never going to wrestle again. And then they did. Person notes a t-shirt went into the pool. Well, that's a start. This person here says, was it just me or did the AEW press conference give me a mid-90s WCW feel when Bischoff took over and was bringing in random wrestlers some fans knew and some fans didn't, and it was just hard to get behind because of it? Well, when Bischoff was bringing in a bunch of random wrestlers that some fans knew and some fans didn't, they started to turn the company around. So I'm not sure if that's an apt comparison. And granted, they had Hogan and Flair, but I mean, they had Hogan and Flair in 94, and this thing didn't start turning around until 96. So they had big WWE names for 2 years before it started to turn around, and it really started to begin turning around once Hall and Nash, who were not, I guess Nash was the WWE main eventer, but he was a failure at it. I mean, they were WWE stars, but they weren't the biggest stars in the company and the biggest draws. This person here says, was the 12,000 pre-sale number how many people signed up for a pre-sale code or how many confirmations were sent out? It's requests. So it's 12,000 requests, not how many emails were actually sent out. This person says, if you want WoW, reach out to the Access PR department. They gave out streams of episodes in the first few weeks for people to review. Yes, I could do that, but that's not the point. The point is, if I didn't have access to the Access TV PR department, as a fan, I can't watch WoW. And there should be an option where a week after the show airs, it's up on YouTube or it's up on whatever, and you give the opportunity for people to see it if they don't have your channel. I mean, a lot of places do that. I mean, Ring of Honor puts it up a week late, and MLW puts it up a few days later. No access whatsoever to WoW. This person says, I give AEW 2 to 3 years to run into the ground and then be bought out by WWE. I've never heard of 90% of the wrestlers you mentioned. Well, prediction show next year. You can put in your prediction. We'll see how it goes. Person says, I don't hear much about the AEW target audience. They may be who they build their roster around. WWE is targeting casual fans and wrestling fans. AEW is seemingly targeting wrestling fans. Well, WWE can target casual fans, but they're not getting any. That's one of the problems right now. It's all hardcore WWE fans. And I don't know. I mean, the AEW target audience, to me, is the hardcore WWE fans right now that have given up on WWE. And maybe the semi-hardcore WWE fans that have given up on WWE and they want an alternative. That's who they're trying to target right now. And obviously, they're looking to target the masses. I mean, they had their tickets in Hot Topic. It wasn't just, or their t-shirts. It wasn't just t-shirts and pro wrestling tees. They're going after the casual fans. But right now, they're hoping to pick up the WWE fans who have given up, and there's a lot of them. Back in a moment, Observer Live. A couple of things. This person here texted me in all caps, apparently furious that I called Omega an executive. On the deal last night, there was a graphic on the screen identifying Omega as an executive vice president of All Elite Wrestling, which would in fact make him an executive. Now, maybe he corrected that. There's a new interview with Omega up right now at WrestlingObserver.com. If that was a mistake, then it was a mistake. But they called him an executive vice president of All Elite Wrestling last night during the press conference. So that would in fact make him an executive. Also got a lot of texts here. TNA is still around and people are predicting AEW's failure. Yes. This person, why do people want AEW to fail? Well, it's just like when Raw produces a bad show, and I say that it's a bad show, and I get people jumping all over me that I am whatever. that they think it's a great show, and WWE can do no wrong. And they do not want WWE to have any competition. And anything that springs up that's not WWE, it obviously to them can't be as good as WWE, and therefore they don't want to see it, they don't want it to succeed, and they want it to fail. This will always happen throughout history. And, I mean, if you've been following wrestling for any amount of time, you know that the very best period ever for WWE was when they had strong competition on the other channel, when they were going head up with WCW. I mean, you can say whatever you want about the Attitude Era, but like the summer of 97 was incredible. They did a lot of great things, and they drew some great numbers, some great business. We're watching the year 2000 right now is incredible. All of this when they had strong competition. The worst period they ever had was when WCW was weak in the early 90s and when WCW died in the early 2000s. So if they were real wrestling fans, they would want to see All Elite Wrestling succeed because it would boost WWE. But we're out of time, everybody. I want to thank you all for listening here today. We'll be back this weekend with more, if I'm not snowed in, Wrestling Observer Live.